What's with the coldness at my back? I was rushing to finish my novel for tonight's release when a sword stopped at my throat. The woman holding it had just walked out of the chapter one was typing. Her name is Qiu Wuji, the strongest cultivator in my story, and the female lead I'd been writing for 2 years. And the god who made her world turned out to be a broke, homeless-looking man who hadn't showered in 3 days. If you dare to write that I fall for that disciple, I will take your dog life, even if it means this world collapses. But to explain how she ended up in my room, I have to go back 12 hours to the worst blind date of my life. For this blind date, the girl specifically put on her most revealing long dress. Yet the man sitting across from her left her somewhat disappointed. He looked like an absolute shut-in who stayed locked in his room all day playing games and never saw the outside world. Meanwhile, I was feeling extremely regretful. After 2.5 years of going on these blind dates, I never expected that this match would be so gorgeous. Had I known, I would have actually cleaned up a bit. After going through the standard blind date routine, Gu Ruo made up her mind. The man before her was just a 27 or 28-year-old, unemployed web novelist who wrote a loser-style autobiography. Ultimately, she offered an apologetic smile and stood up to leave. I still have some things to take care of. I lowered my head and said, please go ahead. Many people have said that my parents did not pick a very good name for me. Chu Ge sounds a bit like virgin. That is why I have been on 11 blind dates and not a single one succeeded. What woman could possibly compare to the fun of gaming? If my mom hadn't kept nagging me, these blind dates would never have happened in the first place. It is a pity, though, because this one was genuinely pretty. So pretty that I still find it a bit surreal. That sudden flutter in my heart has yet to settle. Just then, the phone on the table begins to buzz. I picked up my phone and casually opened a chat group named Brothers in Arms. This was also my reader and fan group. At this moment, the group seemed to be targeting a certain news screenshot and had reached a tacit agreement. I routinely typed today is a scary day for marriage. +1 and stopped replying. What is the use of telling them anything? They do not care at all about what mood you are in on the other side of the screen. What they focus on is just that you did not update today. If you catch a small illness, you dare not ask for leave, because the feedback you get is usually not to rest well, but rather making excuses again. This is the current situation for online creators. My rented apartment, from the luxury coffee shop in the city center, was obviously quite a long distance away. By the time I got home, it was already getting dark. This was a 2-bedroom apartment. Neither of the 2 rooms had the lights on. Yet from one of them came the clattering sound of typing. That was my fellow writer friend. Have you eaten yet? I asked casually. This friend had a very classical-sounding name, called Zhangqiren. I just made something random to eat. Suddenly, inspiration is flowing like a broken faucet. Wait, you coming back at this time means your blind date flopped? It flopped, just like your inspiration. I turned around and got ready to go back to my room. Zhangqiren finally stopped the clattering in his hands and asked what the reason was this time. Apartment? Money? House? I glanced at him. Then I suddenly smiled and said it is because we are vagrants. Zhangqiren's smiling expression froze a little. He seemed unwilling to discuss this topic further. My new book releases tomorrow, so remember to give me a chapter shout-out. My stats have been looking a bit cold lately. I patted him on the shoulder. I remember. Do not panic, stats are a mysterious thing. Some books look wildly popular but get hardly any subscriptions. Others look niche yet have tons of hardcore fans. Zhangqiren forced a smile and agreed that it is true. Forget it, come what may since things are already like this. If it blows up, I will visit luxury clubs. If not, I am just a deadbeat. After saying goodbye, I returned to my room. I seriously doubted whether, if this kept up, I would lose my speech function. Talking away fluently in front of Gu Ruoyan today and spouting nonsense was partly because I was getting out of touch with normal communication. I took off my jacket and thought about it abstractedly. I wondered if I could add such a character into the book. An intellectual workplace professional woman. Yet I am writing Xinxia. This image should probably correspond to someone in a mid to high-level sect, and then get conquered and won over by the protagonist. That is a bit troublesome, because there is already an established female lead image. It's somewhat similar to this. Her name is Qiu Wuji. She's the sect leader of the protagonist's sect. She's one of the strongest cultivators in the world, having almost reached the edge of ascension. She's also the most beautiful woman in the world. As a harem novel writer, I know very well. The key is to give each female character distinct traits. If I add another similar character, it'll be hard to make her stand out. I shook my head. I decided to focus on writing this female sect leader properly. She is the primary female lead, after all. And in the next stage of the story, she's the main target of the protagonist's pursuit. At this point, the protagonist, Shu Tiange, is still just a minor character. He gained the sect leader's appreciation after a certain accident. He was promoted from a lowly servant directly to an inner sect disciple. The sect leader even gives him personal guidance from time to time. This is the start of the protagonist's rise. At this stage, the protagonist still views the sect leader as his master and respects her deeply. The sect leader simply sees the protagonist as a talent with potential and gives him a hand. As for how the protagonist's filial piety will warp later, and how the sect leader will decide to eat young grass, I still need to design a long-term plot for that. But I can start laying the groundwork now. For some reason. In Qiu Wuji's mind, the smiling face of Chu Ge suddenly flashed by. That sunny smile. Amidst this path of immortality where everyone looked out only for themselves. Felt so special. It could make anyone's mood open up along with it. My fingers flew across the keyboard. And the more I wrote, the better it felt. It was as if, along with the words appearing, I could see a character in my own eyes. A fairy pushing open the window to gaze at the moon. Lost and lonely. To the point where I could seemingly feel the cold wind from opening the window. Seeping in from behind. Sending a chill straight down my spine. My own window was right in front. So what was with the coldness at my back? A cold gleam flashed. And a dark blue long sword was held against my neck. The piercing chill felt as if it could even freeze my soul. I suddenly turned around. And saw a woman in ancient costume holding a sword against my neck. Staring angrily at my document with fierce eyes. Before my brain could make any reaction at all, I heard the woman say word by word. If you dare to write that I fall for that disciple, I will take your dog life even if it means this world collapses. She was the ruthless fairy of 10,000 years of bitter cultivation in the eyes of others. Yet because of a small accident, she inexplicably fell for an outer sect odd-job disciple, as if there was some destined feeling of preordained fate. However, when Qiu Wuji saw that figure sitting in front of the computer typing away, the fairy fell silent. Could it be that her years of hard work and all her thoughts and feelings were just scripted plots written by someone else? Why would the author write that I fell in love with that outer sect disciple? This should definitely not be what I, Qiu Wuji, truly think. Anyone who tries to casually manipulate me, no matter who they are, must die. Qiu Wuji held her sword against my neck and said word by word. If you dare to write that I like that disciple, I will risk the collapse of this world to take your dog life. I was dumbfounded, thinking, who on earth are you? The woman withdrew her gaze from the document and slowly spoke, resting on the quiet sword tip. At that moment, I thought I was hallucinating. The female lead actually ran out of the book and even put a sword to the author's neck to threaten me not to write about her falling in love with the male lead. No, my mind must be messing with me because I stayed up late writing. But looking at the door, it was closed tightly. There was no sound of opening or closing just now either. How did she get in? Could it be a thief? No. It would make more sense if some top hacker thought my writing was too trashy and hacked my computer to rewrite it for me. Besides, this woman is way too pretty. I used to think Guru Woyan was the prettiest woman I had ever seen in reality. Yet not even a few hours have passed. And that belief has just been shattered by the person right in front of me. Both her appearance and temperament, and even her outfit, completely match the descriptions in the book. Did she really run out of the book? I am not some immortal anyway. How could a world from a book become real? Managing to keep my wits about me, I said with some difficulty. Let us talk things over. Can you please put down the sword first? Qiu Wuji held her sword against my neck, her expression flickering as if she was deep in thought. I do not need a sword to kill you. I thought to myself that a sword was the least of it. If she really was Qiu Wuji, her mere aura would be enough to kill me. Or could it be that she simply does not want to kill me? Get up. Qiu Wuji yanked me up from the chair as if I were a little chick, and took over my seat. Then she got stuck. I just stood off to the side with my arms crossed, watching her perfect fingers hover over the keyboard. After hesitating for a long time, she still had no idea how to type what she wanted. Are you planning to write this yourself? I finally couldn't help asking. This really was something else. The female lead writing her own story. Thinking about it actually felt pretty thrilling. Fine, here, take the keyboard and you write it. Qiu Wuji fell silent for a moment, then lightly pressed the keys. The next second, the USB port emitted a strange, buzzing sound of current. Qiu Wuji frowned and pulled her hand back. I gotta start. Don't tell me you were trying to inject spiritual energy to analyze the structure of this magical artifact? At that moment, I really started to believe she was the real Qiu Wuji. Was this something a normal person could possibly do? After a bout of awkward silence, Qiu Wuji finally spoke up. How do you use this artifact? Why can I not sense any spiritual qi flowing through it? The electrical current here seems to have nothing to do with your literature. Just how do you transmit literature into this screen? There is no way I can explain this to you. I'm just a liberal arts major. I thought about it for a moment, then carefully asked, what do you want to write? You talk and I will write. I wanted to test what was actually going on here. If I shaped the story according to the female lead's own will, What kind of changes would happen to her future? Qiu Wuji turned her head to glance at me and looked rather surprised. Seeing how flustered and panicked you were before, you sure calmed down fast. Anyone would panic if a sword was held against their neck, all right? I am not one of you cultivators. I cursed inwardly, but replied calmly on the outside. Because panicking is useless. I want to figure out what is going on even more than you do. I reached out and tapped the keyboard, confirming that it still worked. Go ahead, tell me how you want me to write. Qiu Wuji sized me up once more and said without hesitation, write that this seed achieves sudden enlightenment and ascends, breaking the limit of heaven and humanity. I think that is invalid, because it deviates from the fundamental settings of this world. Just like if I wrote about an ordinary mortal suddenly ascending. That certainly would not work either. Qiu Wuji grasped my meaning. The next moment, the orchid-colored long sword was pressed against my neck again. In your settings, I cannot ascend? Sensing Qiu Wuji is hidden murderous intent and anger, I quickly explained that she could not abruptly ascend at this exact moment. You are the protagonist of the story. If the protagonist is gone, would not the story fall apart? Qiu Wuji was silent for a moment, and with a dark expression she insisted, just write it as I said. I shook my head and sat down to type on the keyboard. As her mood opened up, she suddenly felt the heavenly gates open wide, and the intent of ascending into the clouds gradually spread across the sky. Tribulation clouds surged, and the heavens shook dramatically. This should have been a harem web novel full of cheesy cliches. Who would have thought the female lead, unsatisfied with the role I gave her, would actually cross over from the book and cryingly demand that I modify the plot for her? Yet right after I wrote the setting for her ascension, Qiu Wuji quietly sensed it for a moment, and then gently shook her head, saying it was useless. I let out a breath and smiled. I knew it would not work. It definitely has to stay within the world framework and be logically consistent. Qiu Wuji lowered her head in thought and sighed as if talking to herself. I never imagined our creator and father God would merely be a weak scholar incapable of tying a chicken. The truth of our world is actually just a book. All our joys and sorrows are manipulated by human hands, and our future fate is nothing more than a preset trajectory. Even my emotions change moment by moment with the shifting of a pen. Her tone carried a trace of melancholy, along with a sense of daze at having everything untangled. I stared blankly at her expression. I thought to myself that Qiu Wuji in my writing was someone with firm determination, who loved to take control of her own destiny. Now that she found out she was just a book character being manipulated, it must feel terrible. Qiu Wuji frowned as she looked at me, and suddenly asked if I was pitying her. I pursed my lips without answering, and instead said that while everything was controlled by someone else, it was not entirely arbitrary. Just like how I could not casually write you to ascend on the spot, because it requires self-consistent logic for any character. And what they would say? At most, among several possible choices, I just pick one of them. It is still chosen from the options you yourself would make, rather than something that violates your persona. I paused and smiled bitterly, saying some people claim that once a character is written out, they are no longer controlled by the author. And your appearance has given that statement its most powerful proof. Qiu Wuji looked at me quietly, her beautiful eyes like deep pools of water. You want to say that it is my own choice if this sovereign might possibly like that man? My face turned completely green. I thought to myself that I'd really shot myself in the foot. Of course that wouldn't be her choice. Qiu Wuji is peerless in this world, with such an aloof manner and vast perspective. How could she possibly take an interest in a disciple who just joined? But this is a harem story, after all. Getting a woman who is fundamentally unobtainable is the real thrill of a harem story. Who would read it otherwise? Qiu Wuji said coldly, that would absolutely not be a choice I would make. In other words, you can at least influence the so-called self-consistency to some extent. According to the storyteller, it means even if you slip up, you can still smooth it over. I really regretted writing her to be so smart. I could only wipe away my cold sweat and say, I can smooth things over a little bit. As Qiu Wuji was speaking, her expression suddenly shifted. I watched helplessly as her figure began to blur, growing fainter and fainter like a phantom until she vanished completely. Her final voice echoed through the air. No matter what method you use, you are not allowed to continue writing any romantic involvement between me and that Chu Ge. I can reappear at any time, and if you keep writing nonsense, you'll never have to write again. Her voice faded away. The person was gone. I looked at the empty room and slapped myself in the face. Only that real pain confirmed I wasn't dreaming. Thinking back, I felt a wave of fear. In my character design, Qiu Wuji is far from being some gentle, kind saint. Cultivators fight heaven for longevity and others for dominance, and she is incredibly decisive when it comes to killing. Even if she isn't from a demonic sect, she's clearly taken plenty of lives. Based on the personality I wrote for her, Her most likely move would be to kill me, the creator god. The only reason she hasn't killed me yet is likely because she's worried that if the creator god falls, her world will collapse. Just great. I haven't even finished the outline for the next part, and now the female lead has popped out to force me to change the plot. Who the hell did I even offend? Just because I'm not the protagonist, I'm fair game, huh? But who does a writer fear? I'll go down swinging. I grit my teeth, adjusted my keyboard, and started writing feverishly. Meanwhile, inside a secret chamber in the world of the book, an illusory shadow descended from thin air and merged with her body. Qiu Wuji opened her eyes. Her gaze shifted from a slight daze to a look of firm determination when she saw a man in front of a strange glowing screen, tapping away at a bizarre square magic artifact. Words successively appeared on the screen. The shock and bewilderment in Qiu Wuji's heart at that moment were beyond words. Perhaps this was what they called the mysterious will of heaven. Still, it did not matter. What was terrifying was the unknown. Now that she had seen through the truth, there was always a way. The crucial issue right now was that her breakthrough of the boundary this time involved some accidental elements. Her top priority now was to find out how to stabilize breaking the boundary at any time, and how to stay in the outside world for long periods. When that time came, she could retreat and let her own world be woven at will. Or she could advance and roam the outside world to explore the heavens. With this boundless universe and vast expanse of heaven and earth, what could not be achieved? Falling for a disciple? What a joke. How could that possibly be my future? If I were to look for a man at all, it should be the creator and father of the world. This train of thought connected so smoothly that Qiu Wuji did not notice anything wrong for a moment. It was only after quite a while that she came to her senses. How could I possibly think like that? Qiu Wuji's heart stirred, and she slowly widened her eyes. He wrote this. He actually dared to write something like this. A.D. A man was having a wet dream. In the dream, the novel he wrote himself showed the stunning heroine flying straight into his embrace. Just as he was about to enter paradise, a serene blue sword suddenly appeared and stabbed right at him with a whoosh. I screamed and woke up from the dream with a start. Thinking back to the last sentence of the chapter 1 published the day before yesterday, it felt like opening Pandora's box, leaving me both nervous and thrilled. Every time a breeze of night wind blew past, I felt like Qiu Wuji might have shown up. Surely she could not cross realms at any moment. Otherwise it really would scare me to death. It was past 2 in the morning. I really could not stay in bed. Because of the sudden change in the romance plot yesterday, I had taken a day off to sort out my outline. I simply got up to check the review section. To my utter astonishment, most of the reviews were actually positive. They said having a woman like Qiu Wuji fall for a low-level disciple felt right, and slow-burn conquest was much more flavorful. I had thought the character persona was going to collapse. It turned out the damage was contained. As readers pointed out, since the author writes harem stories, writing it this way made it gradual and interesting. Unable to help myself, I used a burner account to reply. How is that fast? This is just foreshadowing anyway, not love yet. We are nowhere near that stage. The next moment, with a ding, a user whose pen name was author come out and take a beating replied. Did you even read the author's previous book? Want to make a bet? If it were before, I would never have dared to take that bet. In the original outline, Qiu Wuji was definitely going to be taken into the harem by the protagonist. But now? All the frustration from tossing and turning for half the night vanished completely. I laughed heartily and replied with 2 words, you is on. After replying with a challenge, I did not wait for a response. I logged off right away. Standing up, I stretched my back. Muttering to myself, I figured storytelling is all about suspense. Since everyone already expects a certain direction, I might as well shake things up. Besides, Qiu Wuji is not letting me follow the original outline anyway. I decided to completely rewrite the outline. I will steer clear of everyone's predictions. The worst outcome is just bombing in the rankings. It is not like I have never bombed before. Right now, saving my own skin is the top priority. I turned to look at the front door. I thought about asking Zhang Qiren for his opinion. After all, I heard his new book hit 400 subscriptions in the first hour yesterday. He is definitely on track to hit bestseller status. I could also drop by to congratulate him. His door was tightly shut. A faint light leaked through the crack. True to a fellow author, he was still grinding out chapters at this hour. As I reached out to knock on his door, it creaked open on its own. Zhang Qiren stepped out, taking off a white headband, while pushing a suitcase beside him. Are you moving out? The 2 a.m. street outside was still buzzing with the lively pulse of city life. Zhang Qiren chugged 3 bottles of beer in a row without stopping. After finishing the 4th bottle, he slammed the empty can heavily onto the table and said with a tone of deep resentment, my new work has been reported. I was stunned for a moment, watching the healthy flush on his face fade away completely. The exhaustion of going a day and night without sleep instantly crept across his cheeks, making him look suddenly aged. Zhang Qiren let out a bitter chuckle and continued. They said my story used ancient events to satirize the present and made hidden political allusions. My editor told me to hide it for a while and release it again after revising the content. I reached out and patted his shoulder, telling him not to lose heart. Your readers are quite loyal, so if you hurry up and revise it, there is still hope. Zhang Qiren sat there in silence, and after a long while said in a low voice, it was blocked right as it went on shelves. Who is going to read it once it is finally released? Besides, I did not even write anything like that. How am I supposed to revise it? I truly love writing books. I have always felt that showing the world inside my heart to others is a wonderful thing. So even though I know I am bad at it, I study frantically every single day, reading books and all kinds of tutorials. My notes have piled up as thick as a book. He paused, sniffed, and added, my first 2 books tanked. My subscription count was only in the dozens. Yet I never missed a single day of updates. I delivered food and finished writing the entire story on the side. It was both practice and a way to build up some good karma. After moving over here, I wrote for 10 hours every single day, pushing myself late into the night. At such a young age, my lower back and cervical spine are ruined. Brother Chu, is my attitude still not good enough? Am I still not working hard enough? I lowered my head and said, you work harder than I do. Zhang Qiren had been struggling at the bottom of the web novel industry for nearly 2 years. He flopped with 1 book every year. This was his 3rd serialized work. For this book, he even stopped delivering food. He burned his boats, yet this was the result he got. Still, far too many people in this line of work end up like this. I made an agreement with my family. If this book fails, I will go back home. Zhang Qiren let out a long sigh and suddenly smiled, saying, I have been dreaming for so many years. It is time to wake up. It is time to live the life of a normal person. Dropping a book means cutting it short. Zhang Qiren suddenly burst out laughing to himself. My pen name is bullying others, so I guess I got castrated. Is that supposed to be bullying others? I could not laugh at all. I knew his spirit had been completely broken. This was true despair. Zhang Qiren sighed before leaving. All these years of pointless struggling were not for nothing. The biggest gain was making a friend like Brother Chu. He was truly loyal, and nothing more needed to be said. If I ever need help in the future, just let me know. I patted his shoulder and told him to get going. Work hard. Let us grab a drink when we have time. We are still in the same city anyway. I wish Brother Chu's book massive success. Zhang Qiren said that, then rode away on his electric cart. His back carried the sound of shattered dreams. My situation was about the same as Zhang Qiren's. I used to be a 9-to-5 office worker too. Feeling that life going on like that was dull and meaningless, I started chasing a literary dream. My first book barely made enough to get by. The next 2 books completely bombed. Only my current book is doing relatively well. The only slight advantage I had was that my family supported me. Or to put it another way, my family simply had no time to care about me. My parents reportedly worked in a classified unit. Even I had no idea what they were doing. Anyway, they were nowhere to be seen year-round. Although we occasionally spoke on the phone. Suddenly, a dark figure flashed past me. It was incredibly fast, and there wasn't a single footstep. I was startled. The girl stopped as well. She looked back, her face flushed from drinking. There seemed to be some apology in her eyes. Before she turned and ran off again. I got a good look at her. She was the girl who lived next door. Zhang Qiren had mentioned she was a game streamer. It seems streaming isn't doing so well, since she's out drinking. I remember Zhang Qiren seemed to really like her. By the time I returned to my dorm, it was almost dawn. I looked around. The 2-bedroom apartment that used to feel small now felt so empty and desolate. From now on, I really won't have a single person to talk to. Just as I was thinking this, I felt a chill on my neck as a long sword was held against it. Qiu Wuji's voice drifted over calmly. That line you wrote, are you seeking death? I didn't look back. I stood there in silence for a moment, then let out a breath and suddenly smiled. Thank you. You've come at the perfect time. A long sword suddenly appeared at my neck. Yet I felt no panic. I even turned my head with a smile to say thank you. Qiu Wuji never expected this guy would blurt out something like that. She thought his brain must have broken after just 1 day apart. I calmly pushed the sword away. Put the sword away first. I do not remember writing that you liked holding swords to people's necks. Usually you would just slash directly. Holding it like this means you did not want to kill me. Qiu Wuji felt rather aggrieved to find that the person who understood her best in this world might not be herself, but this creator god. She did not lower her sword this time. She asked coldly, must I do whatever you write? I jumped in fright. Maybe it really was like that before, but since you are unwilling, we can discuss things from now on. Qiu Wuji frowned, since we are discussing things. Then explain. That part about wanting me to be yours should be the creator, Father God. What is that all about? My heart skipped a beat. I almost forgot about that detail. You do not want to be entangled with Chu Ge, but I still had to find a way to smooth over my previous logic. So I needed to make the plot shift feel natural. I would change it so that if Qiu Wuji wanted a man, he had to be at the creator god level. That totally fit her persona. Qiu Wuji seemed not to hear any of it. She wore a dark expression and said, "Why would I want a man? I should never even have such a thought. Go back and change it." I covered my head and kept quiet. Say something. Weren't you going to discuss this with me? Are you mute? I muttered under my breath. It seems I cannot change it anymore. What do you mean? Qiu Wuji was fuming, her chest heaving. I quickly pulled out my phone and handed it over. The chapter has already been published. Look, there are already a lot of comments. Before I could finish, I heard a bang. I was grabbed, lifted up, and thrown against the wall. Since that is the case, then I have no choice but to kill you. Qiu Wuji sneered coldly. The dark blue sword in her hand began to glow with light. I was genuinely starting to panic. I quickly said, "Wait a minute. I can patch the plot." Qiu Wuji frowned. "What do you mean?" "The moment you appeared, I faintly sensed a sequence of events in my mind." I said, "I can feel it. You tried to go through a tribulation outside of the scenes I wrote. That is the only reason you were able to appear here." Qiu Wuji took a deep breath. He really could perceive what she was doing. It was not just writing. What you did was actually very dangerous, right? After all, only your divine sense came over, and with your body and soul separated by the realms, your wandering soul had no anchor and could easily dissipate in space and time. Even the slightest mishap during the crossing could trap you in spatial turbulence and grind you to dust. Qiu Wuji sneered. "So what if it is?" I shook my head and said, "I can patch the code as a cunning male author, making it easier for you to come over without taking such risks." This time Qiu Wuji was truly shocked. "You are willing to help me?" Leaning against the wall, I turned to look at the empty living room and slowly said, "Consider it so. After all, your appearance happened to cure my mental exhaustion at this moment. In this world, I am someone who cannot control my own destiny. So I cannot imagine what it is like to be a character in a book. If that were really the case, maybe I would go crazy. Yet you know your fate is controlled by others, and still want to master your own destiny. For that alone, I will help you." Qiu Wuji narrowed her eyes and stared at him. She felt this sudden poetic sentiment was absurd, yet she had to admit, it really spoke to her heart. That kind of resonance cannot be faked. I stood up and walked back to the computer. That day you tried to ascend, and it did not work. Setting logic aside, it might also be because it was not published. So let us run another test. This time I will write it in a new draft without publishing. Let us see if it works. With that, I quickly typed into the document. Although Qiu Wuji's ascension did not succeed, she found a way to roam beyond the realm. She could separate her soul across boundaries and traverse spatial rifts without getting lost. Qiu Wuji silently sensed it. Her gaze grew increasingly complex. It works. She truly felt her abilities had evolved. She turned her head to look at me in front of the computer desk, thinking to herself that this man looked weak, yet possessed a hugely influential power over her. Maybe I should lock him up and control him, to make him keep strengthening me. But then, I suddenly turned and smiled. Your lifelong pride was a path of cultivation forged through blood and sweat, carved out from the brink of death through your own wit and brilliance. How does it feel now that it's just something granted to you by someone else? A murderous glint returned to Qiu Wuji's eyes. You know me like the back of your hand. Don't you know that saying something like that will just get you hit again? But why would I hit you? I asked calmly. Am I not helping you? I pointed at the screen, a strange light flickering in my eyes. The woman I wrote, into whom I poured all my beautiful fantasies, now has a soul of her own. She's no longer just cold text. For someone who weaves worlds, imagine how thrilling that is. In the terms of your world, if I am seeking the Tao, then Qiu Wuji, the day you break free from your existence in the book will be my path to enlightenment. Qiu Wuji looked quietly into my eyes. Though she hated that I could control her, she had to admit that I was a man of conviction. We've met twice now, and you've never once asked for my name. Maybe you think it's unimportant, but I think it's time you actually got to know me. I finally reached out my hand to her. Hello, my name is Chu Ge. The girl had lived for a full 10,000 years. Yet she had never shaken hands with anyone. Looking at the hand extended by the man in front of her, her expression shifted from calm to flushed, and then turned livid. Scoundrel. Trying to touch me just like that? What do you take Qiu Wuji for? What does he mean, a woman written out of all his fondest fantasies? I ended up beaten black and blue, thinking to myself that I would write a patch later and add handshaking etiquette into the story. Seeing that Qiu Wuji did not say anything more, I cautiously asked, by the way, I do not know about your current state, whether you need to eat, but I feel like it is time for breakfast. Would you like to come with me? and see this brand new world? Walking down the bustling streets, Qiu Wuji looked around at the towering skyscrapers. This enclosed and oppressive feeling made her somewhat uncomfortable. This world is also rather strange. Spiritual energy is extremely sparse. Whether it is human beings or everyday objects around us, there is no sign of utilizing spiritual energy whatsoever. Someone was holding a small square device, seemingly talking to someone else. Was that long-distance sound transmission? Someone made a clicking sound. They were taking a photo with the food at a roadside stall. Soul capturing projection? Someone snapped a flame to light the paper roll clamped between their lips. Fire control arts? These mundane people were actually doing things only immortals should be able to do. Yet for Qiu Wuji herself, this place somehow felt like the real world. My voice came from beside her, asking if a stranger in a strange land was feeling lost. Thinking of retreating? If so, how could she talk about exploring the heavens and experiencing them? Her heavenly realm. I casually went to a roadside ramen shop and ordered a bowl of beef noodles. Turning my head, I asked Qiu Wuji if she wanted any. Qiu Wuji hesitated for a moment and nodded. I turned toward the kitchen and shouted to the boss to add 3 more bowls of noodles with extra meat and eggs. Then, I first moved my own bowl over to Qiu Wuji. Qiu Wuji cautiously took a tentative bite, wondering inwardly how the mortal world could possibly have such delicious food. Shouldn't this be something created by immortals? I was a bit curious. Haven't you been in penance and abstained from food for years? Why do you still need to eat? Qiu Wuji replied, your world is rather strange. Pure soul bodies are hard to maintain here, so I force myself to condense a physical shell. This is not my original body, nor is it crafted from any heavenly treasures. It was weak to begin with, and its current strength is at most the chi condensation stage. I can only cast minor spells. I nodded in understanding. This didn't stray from my own setting. Qiu Wuji's world was originally just a mortal realm, only that everyone chased after ascension. Although Qiu Wuji was at the top of her era, her martial might was only slightly higher than immortals, and she couldn't perform most mystic immortal arts. Not to mention the mortals here could already fly to the moon, while she couldn't. Thinking about it that way, Qiu Wuji, who usually acted like a female tyrant, somehow looked just like a stray cat right now. Just look at the confusion in her eyes as she tried so hard to keep a calm facade. Unaware of what I was thinking, Qiu Wuji looked around warily. The other customers in the restaurant were giving her strange looks. She lowered her voice and asked, didn't you say nobody would mind my outfit? What about now? I snapped back to reality and amusedly pointed at my own short-sleeved t-shirt before gesturing to Qiu Wuji's heavy dharma robes. It is late summer. Did you think anyone could withstand both heat and cold like that? The shop owner brought over the noodles at that moment and cast a similarly strange look at Qiu Wuji. I gave a dry cough. It is just ACG stuff, if you know what I mean. The owner wore a knowing expression and walked away shaking his head. After a bowl of plain noodles went down her stomach, Qiu Wuji looked somewhat dazed. In our world, customs and material goods are scarce. The common people go years without knowing the taste of meat or oil. All living beings suffer, so why would you write it like this? Yet meat is readily available everywhere here. Why? You do not need to think of this aspect as my fabrication. Things were simply like that in ancient times. I said calmly. I never hope for you to treat your world as false. Take it as real. And the world is real. The Qiu Wuji in my heart should hold this conviction. With that, I stood up and walked over to pay the bill. Qiu Wuji asked from behind me, why do you not try to suppress my pride? Wouldn't that be more beneficial for you? Why are you advising me against it instead? Because that isn't my Qiu Wuji. My words drifted through his mind. Qiu Wuji knew that I didn't mean any harm when I said that. That was the Qiu Wuji he had written. The heartless fairy, who had practiced bitter cultivation for years in the book, had just traveled into reality. She had just been forcibly exposed by her own author. But instead of getting angry, she actually blushed a little. Because Qiu Wuji knew that I was the only person he knew in this reality. Although she could survive by robbing the rich to help the poor, staying by my side would be a much faster way to understand this new world. I had no idea what Qiu Wuji was thinking. After getting home, I rushed to sit in front of my magical treasure. Qiu Wuji quickly followed and asked, what are you doing? I gave a simple response, intending to tell him the next part of the plot. I sat down at the computer, pointing at the Taigang text on the screen, and said, in the book, have you heard? Within the myriad snake cave in the southwest, that there might be a green dragon's shed scale. The snake will set 4 Taigang formations for you. The snake will lead its swarm there. Deep in the snake cave, I crossed paths with the poison hand monarch at the falling dragon pool. I had the upper hand in the fight. However, the poison hand monarch suddenly used a sinister magic treasure to ambush me. I fell into the pool and was poisoned by a rare serpent. Before I could finish, Qiu Wuji angrily interrupted me. How could the poison hand monarch possibly be my match? I did not mind. Giving a light cough, I continued. At that moment, my sect disciple Chu Ge was also in the outer layer of the cave. Since he was the protagonist, he stumbled upon a snake's saliva fruit by coincidence, which happened to be my antidote. An antidote? Are you writing some cliché story where I catch aphrodisiac poison? Qiu Wuji asked alertly. I was somewhat stunned as well. Damn it, I never wrote that kind of story in your world. Can that world really evolve on its own? Qiu Wuji grabbed my collar and told me to get to the point. I smiled and said with a guilty conscience, how could I ever write that kind of story? It was simply that Chu Ge rendered meritorious service, and thus caught your eye even more. Besides, he is the protagonist. It is totally normal to lay groundwork for the protagonist encounters. Qiu Wuji gritted her teeth and said, then wouldn't it be fine if you just didn't write the poisoning plot? My expression suddenly turned a bit weird. Wait a minute, you have actually seen the plot by now. The demonic hand should not be able to get the drop on you either. If I keep writing it this way, will you still fall for the trap? Qiu Wuji froze for a moment at his words. Her expression grew strange as well. She wondered if this counted as seeing the future. Could she really avoid the plot he wrote now? Or was the will of heaven truly inescapable? I hesitated before continuing. Of course I will write that. You found the antidote from the bottom of the pool yourself. Because starting from yesterday, Chu Ge, and you will no longer have any entanglement. Qiu Wuji pursed her lips and asked tentatively, you did not seem willing to alter the text earlier. I began editing the manuscript and cutting scenes, replying casually, this is your life. No one has the right to sway it. Neither I, nor the heavens. This test of ours is precisely to ask what the will of heaven is. I typed away like flying and quickly became immersed in it. Qiu Wuji watched him delete the scenes involving any entanglement between her and the protagonist. Her gaze grew increasingly soft. It seemed he was not as annoying as she had imagined. Qiu Wuji did not disturb him further. She glanced around the room and turned to walk out. There was a second bedroom nearby. Qiu Wuji remembered when she came over last time. She remembered that last time she came here, she could sense someone living in this room too. Yet today it was completely empty. It looked as though it had been completely cleaned out by someone. I sat there writing from daytime until night, with a heavy stretch. I finally finished my writing for the day. I turned my head to look around, and only then did I remember I still had a female lead in my house. I got up to take a look. Outside the door, I saw Qiu Wuji quietly looking out the window. That solemn sect master robe had somehow already been changed. She wore only an ordinary pale, white martial artist tunic. It looked crisp and simple, yet made her look even more beautiful. My heart skipped a beat uncontrollably. I feigned calmness and spoke. Why are you just standing there like that? You could find something for yourself to do too. Qiu Wuji said indifferently, what can I do by myself? Everything I look at is novel to me, and I need someone to explain it all. Otherwise, if I accidentally break something like last time. She paused and smiled slightly. You are not well off either. I was left speechless in tears. How could she not be the woman onto whom I poured all my beautiful fantasies? Thinking of this, my mood improved a bit. I gave a dry cough and said, if you want to understand this world itself, you have to approach it from two fronts. To understand the world itself, you can read history books. And to understand the current reality, you can start by watching some shows. Qiu Wuji was a bit skeptical about reading history books, and he wondered what I meant by watching shows. I told him I'd show him right now. With a smug look on my face, I sat on the sofa and turned on the TV. I smugly sat on the couch and turned on the TV. The next moment, a man and a woman appeared on screen, rolling around in bed. They were kissing with intense passion. The man tore at the woman's clothes, revealing her snowy shoulders and graceful collarbones. The woman responded with fiery enthusiasm. She let out breathless gasps of desire. I had turned on the TV, and a passionate scene of sweet intimacy suddenly appeared before the immortal fairy. The next moment, true qi surged violently around Qiu Wuji. Is this the reality you wanted to show me? Stunned, I hurriedly explained, no. I pressed the wrong button. Luckily, after changing the channel, it was no longer an intimate scene, but a war movie with soldiers shouting to open fire. Rumbling artillery fire lit up Qiu Wuji's eyes with a fiery glow. Her pupils contracted slightly as she asked if immortals were fighting here. These magic tools look quite powerful. I helplessly explained that this was just acting, depicting wars from the early days of this world. Modern weapons were far more brutal than those things. That was why the outside world was dangerous. Since only a projection of her had come over, she should not run around. We could talk about anything else after her true body arrived. Qiu Wuji really wanted to say that she had nothing to fear, but the words stayed on the tip of her tongue and she did not say them. She only said that she would not watch this, and wanted to learn history instead. I saw through her little prideful thoughts instantly, but I still took out my phone to place an order. and bought a set of 5,000 years of Chinese history. Qiu Wuji watched my operations with curiosity. Will someone send you books just like that? Is this telepathic communication or flying sword messaging? I felt rather smug. This is the heavenly realm after all, so we always have some special abilities. Little did we know that our invisible exchange was pulling us closer together. Qiu Wuji raised her head, just as she wanted to ask how long delivery usually took, and happened to meet my lowered gaze. The next moment, both of us turned away with blushing faces. I scratched my head with some embarrassment. It will take some time. So you. Qiu Wuji interrupted me suddenly with her back facing me. Since we have to wait. Then I will wait for a bit. I see you have an empty room here. I will stay here for these few days. Saying that, she paused for a moment, wondering if this would be an intrusion. I was both pleasantly surprised and bewildered. I thought to myself, well, I certainly wanted to let her stay, given what I knew about her. She should not have been so proactive about sharing a room with a man. Could it be that what she said back then, if I am looking for someone, it should be the Creator Father God, had taken effect? Qiu Wuji turned her head and sighed. She said leisurely, what is that look on your face? Those who practice the Tao have no thoughts of men and women. If not for a perverted Father God manipulating things in the dark, I, Qiu Wuji, would naturally have the breeze as my companion and the bright moon as my partner. Now we are merely living next door to each other, each pursuing our own path. With an open and bright mind, why dwell on it? After she finished speaking, a mischievous flash crossed her eyes. I finally managed to keep you from guessing correctly, did I not? What is wrong with living here? We are just neighbors, not sharing the same room. Is there any real difference from staying in adjacent rooms at an inn? It is all just a matter of people letting their minds wander. I walked back to my room in a daze, washed up briefly, and collapsed onto the bed. My mind kept spinning around the fact that next door, a stunning beauty was now living under the same roof. The heat in my heart was truly hard to describe. Fine, you are open and bright. You are pure and untethered. Fine, you are noble and upright. And I am just perverted and wretched. Happy now? Little did I know. Separated by just a wall, Qiu Wuji stared blankly in this direction. For the first time in their lives, both were living under the same roof with someone of the opposite sex. One of them was dealing with the Creator God she had imagined. The other was dealing with the heroine from his own books. By the break of dawn the next day, I woke up early after a restless sleep. Since my leave was only for yesterday, I had to update my chapters today. I sat on the toilet for a full hour. The chapter was finally finished. I tidied up with a sense of satisfaction, and even fixed my hair after washing up. Narcissistically, I thought, they say a motivated man is heart-fluttering. I wonder if Qiu Wuji would feel that way. The next moment, a heavily felt presence appeared. Qiu Wuji stared at me with a seemingly calm expression. I coughed awkwardly twice. Why are you just standing here? Without saying anything? Qiu Wuji's expression grew even more unnatural. Are you going to move or not? Thinking she also needed to wash up, I said cautiously, There is only my towel and toothbrush here. Qiu Wuji was holding back a desperate urge, crossing her legs awkwardly as she forced herself to ask, what is a toothbrush? I pointed at the toothbrush cup on the vanity and made a brushing motion. It's used for cleaning the mouth, just like those willow twigs with salt you guys use. Though you probably haven't tried that in thousands of years. You want to put something in my mouth that was in yours. An enraged Qiu Wuji grabbed my collar, and I flew back like I was riding a cloud, crashing heavily into the living room sofa. I was getting a bit annoyed too. I was just reminding you that I've used these, so I'll buy you new ones. Why are you so grumpy this morning? Qiu Wuji opened her mouth, her face flushing red again, but she said nothing and just slammed the bathroom door shut. I rolled up from the sofa, wondering if she actually needed to use the bathroom. Isn't she an Ascension Realm powerhouse? Why would she still need to do that? Oh, I almost forgot her body is only at the qi refining stage. She had beef noodles yesterday and needs to digest them. Realizing this, I glanced at the bathroom and sighed to myself. Promise me that immortals aren't supposed to poop, okay? I stood up, feeling a bit of a headache. Forget it. I should just go out and buy her some supplies. It's interesting that the female lead popped out of a book, but there are plenty of practical problems to solve, like daily necessities. That's just life. This is real life. I headed out with a constipated expression on my face. Books could wait for delivery, but daily supplies had to be bought right away. Soon after, Qiu Wuji walked out of the bathroom. She looked around at the empty living room and froze for a moment. Then she hugged a pillow and sat on the sofa, letting her mind wander. Where did he go since he is not here? Was he angry? 20 minutes later, the sound of the front door opening echoed. I came back and froze for a second as well, looking at the figure sitting on the sofa in a daze. I thought to myself that she looked nothing like an all-powerful female sect master, and more like a stray cat. Qiu Wuji snapped out of it and noticed me walking in. She immediately got up to explain, only to be coldly interrupted by me. I placed the things in my hand on the table. This is breakfast, along with some personal toiletries. All brand new. Qiu Wuji saw a cup in the bag and picked it up. It even had a two-dimensional fairy-style girl printed on it. I sat to the side, eating a steamed bun on my own, while muttering vaguely. My Qiu Wuji has always been a very reasonable person, who does not bully others with force. I feel that now. We should lay everything out on the table and talk about it. Qiu Wuji looked up at me. You do not want your fate controlled by someone else. I understand, respect, and am willing to cooperate with you. You want to understand this world, and I feel I have the responsibility to help you. I said calmly. But that does not mean you can take beating me up for granted. I paused and handed her a meat bun. Now that you live here too, and are slowly exploring this world, I do not expect you to show me creator-level respect. Qiu Wuji pursed her lips. Actually, she had good intentions too. But the moment she thought about how I was a man who could control her thoughts and actions, she could not control herself. Yet what I said made sense. Qiu Wuji held the meat bun and fell silent for a long while, then said softly, "Sorry, I will be more careful in the future." I smiled and continued. Actually, we need some time to adjust, because this world is not like yours. You need to try to endure and adapt. It is that thing. Qiu Wuji was stunned. Like what? Like respecting local fashion for starters. Although this outfit of yours is fine to wear out. But walking around dressed like that all the time is not going to work. So if you want to stay here long term, you have to consider modern clothing. Worldview +1, I opened my phone and randomly searched for an underwear advertisement. I made the purchase and handed the phone to Qiu Wuji. Qiu Wuji looked at the woman on the screen, wearing revealing clothes and posing seductively. She was completely dumbfounded. She felt her entire worldview had suffered a severe shock, hardly less than discovering her world was written by someone else. Even demonic sect sorceresses would not dress like this. However, Qiu Wuji quickly calmed down. After all, this world is not my world. So maybe this is normal. Still, am I relying on him too much? Qiu Wuji scrolled through the screen for a moment, and then handed the phone back to me, saying, "Take me to buy clothes. But I will pay you back, including the cost of food and lodging." I raised my head. Qiu Wuji was just about to speak when I interrupted her. If you are thinking of using a storage ring to smuggle things out and pawn them, then I advise you not to mess around. If those treasured tools hurt people, even I will not be able to save you. Oh wait, if I remember correctly, in your soul avatar settings, this clone cannot bring items out with it. So your clothes and sword are just illusions. Qiu Wuji kept a straight face and prepared to leave again. I interrupted again, saying, if you want to rob the rich and give to the poor, that will not work either. It is against the law in this world. I could. What if you want to perform on the street? I spread my hands, but that is just in your head. The Qiu Wuji I wrote is too proud for her own good. How could she ever perform for people to watch? Qiu Wuji slumped back onto the sofa, looking rather deflated. She thought, is this creator ability just mind reading? I rubbed my chin. Actually, you can write web novels like me. At worst, we can use my ID card and bank card to open a dual account. Except the income goes straight into my card. I wonder if you are willing. An ID card? Something similar to a recording talisman or a sect identity plate. That is right. It is just like how you cannot move an inch in your sect without an identity plate. Passing through a teleportation array requires swiping your identity plate too. Even picking up daily tasks at the sundry store requires this thing. You know the consequences of not having one better than I do. It is pretty much the same here. It is fine as long as you only interact with me. Once you need to interact with the outside world, you cannot do anything. Qiu Wuji raised her hand after hearing that. Then what about changing one or snatching one? I was startled, and immediately said, can your sect nameplates be forged like that? Qiu Wuji was silent for a moment. If I learn to write books from you, the money going into your card does not even matter. I do not need money. I originally just wanted to cover your food and lodging expenses, with a clear conscience. But the problem is... She paused. Is there money just as long as I write? I froze in place again. Zhang Qiren's empty room seemed to be mocking me nakedly. I smiled bitterly. Yeah, I do not even know when I will have to pack my things and quit this industry to find a factory job every day. Although Qiu Wuji is a cultivation genius, it does not mean she can write books. Her thinking is orthodox, strict, and solemn, and she disdains lies. Instead, she is unsuited for making up stories. Unless I patch things up for her myself, making her quite skilled at making up stories. Still, this felt rather strange no matter how I thought about it. Qiu Wuji seemed to guess what I was thinking. She stood up and said calmly, I do not need you to force any more abilities onto me. I, Qiu Wuji, have traveled across the world, and I refuse to believe I cannot find a way to make a living. It is simply that I have not thought of it yet. I nodded and said, right. Then let us slowly. I will help you brainstorm. Qiu Wuji stared at me for a long moment. Are you being so eager to help me find a way to make money? Just to subsidize your own expenses? I calmly replied, that is one reason. I do not deny that I am not well off and cannot afford to support another person. Do you want to hear the other two reasons? Go ahead, so that you know. I am not obligated to fawn over you unconditionally, unless you return to the world inside the book. Once you decide to live in this world for the long term, you must put in your own effort. That is the third reason. Qiu Wuji held back for a moment and did not ask what he meant by that fawning word. It sounded really grating to the ear, yet the meaning behind it did not seem to be that kind of genuine flattery after all. So she asked, what about the third? A Qiu Wuji who can live independently in this world. Is truly a Qiu Wuji detached from her existence in the book? I took a deep breath and said, this is the path I seek. Perhaps you think I am just saying nice words, but this is the truth. Qiu Wuji looked at me steadily, then suddenly smiled. My heart skipped a beat yet again, betraying me. I forgot if I had ever seen her smile before. She might have given cold sneers or guarded smirks. This seemed to be her first real smile. It was like melting snow and blooming flowers. The entire room filled with fragrance. She was truly so radiant, she did not look like she belonged in this mortal world. Then Qiu Wuji said softly, take me to buy an outfit of this world, consider it a loan from you. An ancient fairy wandering the streets in revealing clothes. Yet she was showered with praise by the clerk in the lingerie shop. The fairy instantly blushed and did not know what to do, while the man beside her said, just give us a D cup, lace-trimmed one. Just moments ago, I brought Qiu Wuji to the clothing store. Before we even started shopping, the store clerks surrounded us on both sides with questions. The envy in their eyes was practically spilling over. Beauty, your hanfu is so pretty. Where did you get it? Qiu Wuji cast a look of help towards me. Why do people here greet others by calling them beauty? It feels so frivolous. I stood behind her, completely unfazed. Because this was Qiu Wuji's first step toward integrating into society. Looking around at the clothes on the racks, Qiu Wuji saw that the amount of fabric was pitifully small. She couldn't help but ask, which kind of clothes should I choose? The next moment, a shop assistant arrived with lightning speed. She quickly brought over some JK-style outfits and trendy Juru sets borrowed from the shop next door to show her. In the end, Qiu Wuji chose an outfit with a mature, one-isen vibe. It was a simple short-sleeved shirt and a black skirt, which at least looked a bit more dignified. After she stepped into the changing room, the sales clerk couldn't help but praise her. Sir, your girlfriend is so cute. She even blushes just picking out clothes. You two look very well matched. Listening to the sales clerk's voice outside, Qiu Wuji leaned against the wall, feeling a bit confused. What's wrong with blushing while holding such seductive clothes? And why girlfriend? What does that even mean? Why would you use a word like well-matched for female friends? Qiu Wuji pouted. After hanging the OL outfit on the hook, her body slowly began to emit a colorful mist. The Wutu Qingshan attire slowly faded away, revealing her flawless body within the mist. A moment later, the changing room curtain was pulled open with a swish. The three people outside all looked over at the same time. I was truly stunned. I never expected my female sect leader from the Xinxiao world to look so beautiful in office lady attire. As expected, when someone is beautiful, they look great in anything. The clothes weren't expensive, but they were tasteful and gave her an elegant aura. Qiu Wuji's eyes were filled with a mix of shame and anger. She looked exactly like a character from a novel, like an ice-cold female CO, standing right here. She was absolutely stunning. The shop assistant gasped in admiration. You're even more beautiful than a celebrity. Another assistant added, Miss, your cosplay is really detailed. Even your underwear is ancient style. You should probably buy a new set. Qiu Wuji was confused. Is underwear worn in that place? How scandalous. How could I possibly wear such a thing? But looking at them, it seemed that wearing such things was completely normal. Before she could ask me for help, the saleswoman continued. Miss, what cup size are you? I'll help you find the right fit. Qiu Wuji froze, thinking, wait, aren't you selling clothes? Why are you asking about cups? I already have a cup. She looked at me for help. I pushed up my glasses with a blank expression. Let us try a D cup. A lace set. Give me the best quality. The store clerk gave me a strange look. You know your girlfriend well, do you not? I will go fetch it from the back. Actually, I did not know for sure either. Back when I was writing about Qiu Wuji, I just copied lines from the Ode to the Goddess of the Luo River. Her form was slender, yet well-proportioned. Her shoulders were sculpted, her waist bound in plain silk. So this should be about her size. Seeing the clerk leave to get the items, Qiu Wuji pulled on my sleeve with some hesitation. Would it be better with my legs exposed like this? I am not used to it. I blinked rapidly. Buy them. Buy them right now. How about black ones? What should I do? What if someone sees me? She pressed her legs together. The hollow design underneath still made her feel ashamed. Qiu Wuji thought people in this world were truly bizarre. What is the big difference between wearing this and wearing nothing? Yet I sat across from her with a completely solemn expression, thinking that whoever said beauty cannot be eaten as a meal. Even if I starve to death, I still want to see an immortal cultivator woman wearing an office lady, short skirt and black silk, standing in front of me. I feel like the way you are looking at me is not quite right. Back home. Qiu Wuji looked at me with suspicion. You were not like this before. It feels a bit strange. I smiled. What is so strange about it? Look at the street and see if many people dress like this. It is just that they are not as pretty as you. Did you see the way they looked at you? Every single one of them looked like they wanted to swallow you whole. I think you are the one who wants to swallow me whole. Qiu Wuji did not say it out loud. Thinking about it, there really were a lot of people like that on the street. I have to admit that although it looks strange, it is very comfortable to wear. Although it cannot compare to the woven brocade of the immortal path. Compared to mortal things. Even among wealthy human families, I am afraid none of them have such comfortable materials. Could this count as a preliminary experience of the mortal world? Thinking of this, Qiu Wuji suddenly turned her head and asked, So what does girlfriend mean? It was like a basin of cold water poured over my excited self. I suddenly wondered if she would kill me once she found out everything. Well, the meaning of a girlfriend is sort of like a Tao companion. Speaking of Tao companions, I started rambling smoothly. You know the term Tao companion isn't that narrow, right? It just means fellow travelers on the path. Men and women can both be that. Look, it is about sharing ideals and ambitions, yet closer than ordinary friends. Doesn't that fit our relationship perfectly? Qiu Wuji said expressionlessly. Then what does a good match mean? I said cautiously. Of course, a Tao companion can also take on a narrower meaning. That is what the sales clerk meant. Qiu Wuji let out a sigh. Actually, she already knew I was talking nonsense. By this logic, a girlfriend was essentially a romantic partner. In the end, she decided not to argue with me. She murmured softly. Can I consider this my first step in blending into this world? I thought about it for a moment and answered, yes. I figured at least stepping outside now. People would not stare at her like she was a zoo animal. Qiu Wuji asked, what about the second step? Obtaining an official identity? I replied, that is a bit troublesome. I might need to ask some friends about it. During this time, you should just binge some shows. Learn more about modern information. You can ask me if there is anything you do not understand. That makes things much more specific. Qiu Wuji readily sat down on the sofa. She picked up the remote control. As soon as the show started, Qiu Wuji began asking questions. Shanghai is the name of a city. What is our place called? I fell silent for a moment. We cannot use real-world place names here. So it is Nanjiang City. What is a subway? Do we have one? It is a means of transportation. I will take you for a ride another day. What is Pac-Man? It is a game. I will download it for you later. Less than 1 minute into the show, the questions were already as numerous as beans. I seem to have expected this. What is a husband? A husband? Yes. Then why do they not seem to sleep together? The female lead is already back from running. The brave man is still sleeping. Sleeping in separate beds is said to be rather scientific, although not many actually do it. That is strange. What is that fruit? It looks delicious. That is a strawberry cake. Qiu Wuji asked, why is there no next line? I smiled, saying I overspent today and would wait for next month's royalties. Qiu Wuji turned to look at me, knowing that this kind of food was probably several times more expensive than the soy milk and steamed buns I usually ate. She suddenly lost the mood to keep asking questions. Because even in the same world, different people are practically living in entirely different worlds. The quality of life in that story was perhaps something out of my reach. She felt like she finally understood why I would write that kind of story. It was because of unwillingness to accept what could not be attained, so I resorted to fantasy. All of my readers were daydreaming right along with me. It was a story about an ordinary youth with a mediocre background and talent, relying solely on his own hard work to climb step by step. The flowers picked along the way were his rewards, and she might just be the highest flower of them all. At this moment, I asked with some confusion why she stopped asking. Qiu Wuji smiled and said to take it slow, as she could not remember too much at once. You should still have things to do, and if I recall correctly, do you not need to update a chapter? I nodded and told her to focus on her own affairs, since there was plenty of time ahead. I could not help wondering why this girl had suddenly become so considerate after changing into modern clothes. I kept looking back as I walked toward my room, turning my head to see Qiu Wuji, sitting on the sofa in an office suit and watching a show. The bizarre feeling in my heart was truly beyond description. It was starting to feel more and more like the real thing, giving me a sense of family. Just as I was thinking this, I suddenly felt my vision blur. The next moment, Qiu Wuji sitting over there began to slowly fade away. until she completely vanished. How long has it been since I started looking at that short skirt and black silk stockings? At least let me look my fill, could you? I looked at the underwear. And black stockings scattered all over the floor, thinking that if it were before, I might have already put them to use. However, remembering what Qiu said right before she disappeared, it seems my patch did not let her stay for too long after all. I cannot rely on this alone. When I go back, I need to keep tempering my spiritual soul and strive to make her stay a little longer next time. To me, the world over there is just as important. I also want to try whether the poison-handed demon lord can still ambush me now that I know the plot in advance. That is our way, isn't it? I stood there in a daze, staring blankly at the empty room and the clothes on the ground, speechless for a long time. I had just thought about having a home, and in an instant, it was gone. It felt like a joke. Her underwear and black stockings on the floor were just scattered there casually. They were even unwashed. If I had seen this before, my heart might have raced. But right now, I really had zero appetite for any of that. I silently gathered them up and threw them into the washing machine. Pressing the start button, I listened to the machine humming away. I stood there in a daze for a long while, finally shaking my head as I walked into the room to write. Yet clearly, I had already planned out the plot details thoroughly. Before, my writing flew like the wind, able to churn out chapters even while sitting on the toilet. This time, I was stuck for ages, feeling completely blocked and sluggish. No matter what, I could not get into the zone. The moment I wrote the name Qiu Wuji, every expression and smile of hers quickly surfaced in my heart. Even the spots where she beat me up still ached faintly. I thought to myself that she was a real person now, not just a fictional character for me to casually manipulate. How much impact would writing about her have now? Even though I had cut off the intersection between Qiu Wuji and Chu Ge, the normal dialogue and guidance between a sect master and a disciple were still necessary. Otherwise, there would be no point in the protagonist joining the sect. So now, as I wrote about Qiu Wuji guiding Chu Ge, could Qiu Wuji sense? Is she teaching him of her own accord, or is it because I wrote it? If she figures out that I am the one writing this, will she still be willing to teach him? With my mind in chaos, it was really hard to write. Fortunately, this plot arc was actually simple. I forced myself to squeeze out 2,000 words after struggling for ages. I did not even have the heart to carefully polish it. I hurriedly published it and finished my routine daily quota of 2 chapters. This could be said to be the chapter from the very beginning of the book that I felt least inspired writing. I had no idea what kind of nonsense I was even writing. I did not even dare to look at the comment section. After hesitating for a moment, I opened the group chat anyway. Opening it up, I saw the group members criticizing the new chapter. Their reasons for criticism were quite unanimous, saying it was too short and weak. How many pages was this even? I finished reading it on the toilet before I even pulled my pants all the way down. I typed a reply saying I was revising the major outline these past couple of days, so please bear with it for now. At that moment, a message in the group caught my attention. You know, Author Chu, these last 2 chapters are getting better and better. I feel like Author Chu wrote these 2 chapters with much more detail. Even Qiu Wuji's subtle expressions are not missed at all. Oh right, even the clothing details received extra attention. It feels like it was written while looking at a real person. This used to be not very typical of Author Chu, right? Yeah, Author Chu is improving. My hand hovered over the keyboard. Being praised feels good. Meanwhile, in the book world, Qiu Wuji opened her eyes inside the secret chamber. She looked down at herself, still wearing her dignified sect master robes. It felt just like a dream. Qiu Wuji got up and left the secret chamber. Before long, a group of elders arrived together. Reporting to the sect master, we received news not long ago that an azure dragon scale might be hidden in the 10,000 snake cave 10,000 miles to the southwest. This is a rare and precious opportunity. Qiu Wuji remembered how I originally wrote this scene, with the line Qiu Wuji said indifferently, so she decided to do the exact opposite. And so the current Qiu Wuji smiled. I am determined to get this item. I must make a personal trip there. Furthermore, the 10,000 snake cave holds many wonders, and its outer layers are quite suitable for disciples to train. Since I am going anyway, I should naturally bring some subordinates along, in case they find their own fated chances. The leading elder thought to herself that the sect master rarely smiles, and she really looks stunning when she does. Then she spoke, saying she would go select some disciples. Qiu Wuji coughed twice. Was this clue discovered by Chu Ge in Nanjiang City? This disciple really has luck on his side. They should be brought here. And I will also give them some extra pointers and rewards. Go call him over. The elders exchanged bewildered glances. The sect master just came out of seclusion. So how did she know it was Chu Ge who found the clue? Could the sect master's divination abilities have reached this level? Yet the sect master did not seem to practice divination before. She is truly becoming more and more unfathomable. Chu Ge was summoned over and cautiously entered the council hall surrounded by elders. He respectfully gave a salute. While paying his respects, he felt a rather strange sensation in his heart. He always felt that there was killing intent in the gaze the sect master fixed on him. Perhaps it was just his imagination. Why would the sect master want to kill him for no good reason? If she really wanted him dead, he might as well just lie down and wait for death. Then the sect master's expression turned to amusement. It seemed she was merely testing his state of mind. Qiu Wuji's gaze truly had shifted from murderous intent to amusement. So Chu Ge and Chu Ge looked so much alike. It seemed he had completely projected himself into the protagonist when writing. Chu Ge was still a teenager, while Chu Ge was already 27 or 28. He looked almost like his alternative account, or perhaps a son. That being said, was I somehow competing with my own son for a woman? Qiu Wuji rested her right hand on the armrest of her chair. She leaned lazily against her forehead. Finding the clue to the azure dragon shed scales is a great merit to our sect. Chu Ge, what reward do you want from me? Chu Ge hurriedly said. I dare not. This is only what a disciple should do. Qiu Wuji said lazily. I grant you entry to the 3rd floor of the scripture pavilion to study, and you may choose any profound tear technique. The elders were moved, as this reward was truly generous. Given Chu Ge's rank, he would usually only be lucky to reach the 2nd floor. Any technique rewarded would roughly be Huang tier. Yet this went straight to the 3rd floor for a profound tear technique. Why was the sect master suddenly so generous? Qiu Wuji curled her lips in thought. Did she really need to teach him personally to make up for it? Besides, what I wrote was the 2nd floor. This way, she could observe what changes might happen. Plus, he was quite pitiful too, thinking he was fighting his own way up, when it was actually all written by someone else. In addition, Qiu Wuji thought, Chu Ge has not reached Anidia yet, right? Tell the dining hall to give him an extra bowl of beef noodles today, as a reward. Everyone go back and prepare yourselves. In 7 days, we set out for the Fong Snake Cave. The elders and Chu Ge down below were all filled with confusion. Qiu Wuji's lips once again curved into a hint of a smile. So this was what they meant by the mysterious will of heaven. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Qiu Wuji flew on her sword through the air, followed closely behind by a group of top-tier disciples from the sect. The Grand Elder was still feeling somewhat depressed. Why was the sect master so obsessed with how her robes fluttered while flying? The reason, of course, was because I wrote about Qiu Wuji's robes fluttering gracefully. So now Qiu Wuji simply refused to do it that way. Qiu Wuji turned her head to glance at Chu Ge, not far away. She thought about how he had stepped onto the 3rd floor, only to find his cultivation lacking. He picked a cultivation technique he liked, and retreated back down to the 2nd floor. Such steady and down-to-earth cultivation was indeed a very admirable quality. Pity that all these qualities were purely self-indulgent fantasies dreamed up by that fellow Chu Ge. He piled every single good quality onto his own protagonist, making it seem like there was nothing left to praise. Just like me. All this steadfastness, compassion, and pride, even this physical body were nothing more than his settings. Chu Ge's words flashed across her mind. Our test this time around is precisely to ask what the will of heaven truly is. What was truly worth sighing over was the information revealed by those 3 barriers. Now Chu Ge had entered the 3rd floor, yet still could not master it, and was forced to retreat to the 2nd floor. Was this a matter of course? Or was it blocked by the will of heaven? What about my battle with the poison-handed demon lord? Chu Ge failed to see the truth. He could not break through, which was naturally understandable as the will of heaven. But I saw through it. I foresaw how it would turn out. Qiu Wuji took a deep breath and sent a voice transmission. Full speed ahead. Precisely because that world holds so many fascinating things that I must understand it. Next time I go over, I will definitely be better prepared. It is just that perhaps the difficulties will become increasingly clear. On the other side in the real world, I was on the phone with a friend. ID card? Just go get a replacement and be done with it. The processing fee is 20, the processing fee is 3. The person answering the phone was my university classmate. His full name is Lin Wuyang. I heard he took the civil service exam after graduation and became a public servant. Speaking of the population census, first of all, I'm not an expert. I do not work in household registration, but I know a little bit about it. The population census happens once every 10 years, and we just had one last year. As for unregistered households wanting to register during a non-census period, even the household registration office would have to send a formal inquiry to higher authorities. After all, there are basically no unregistered households left nowadays. Maybe a few still exist in impoverished mountain areas, but nowadays they are extremely rare. As Lin Wuyang talked, he started to feel that something was off. Why do you need to ask so much for a forum flame war? I remained very calm. I am a writer, so I just treat it as social research. My identity as an author gave me a distinct advantage when asking questions. Lin Wuyong clearly did not think too much of it either. There is no need to be so serious when writing web novels. You can just make stuff up. I see people writing about God of War characters these days, and nobody says it is wrong. At that moment, a knock sounded on the office door. Lin Wuyong stood up and said, "Right. We might be holding a 5-year anniversary gathering in a bit. Old Hong mentioned it to me a while ago. Just check the group chat later." With that, Lin Wuyong hung up the phone and walked over to open the door. Outside stood an extremely beautiful woman who greeted him. "Hello, Section Chief Lin. If I had been here, I definitely would have recognized her. She was Gu Ruoyan, the woman I went on a blind date with a few days ago." Lin Wuyong's expression quickly turned somewhat flattering. The woman before him was simply too gorgeous. It is a pity he was already married. He truly regretted not meeting her before he tied the knot. "Hello, President Gu. Hello, do you have any instructions for me?" Gu Ruoyan smiled politely and replied, "Section Chief Lin, you are being too polite. What about the materials I asked for previously?" "Well, to be honest, that is quite difficult. We need time. I will be staying in Nanjiang City for a while longer. I hope to hear good news." After hanging up the phone, I wore a worried look. Although our classmates scattered after graduation, and we rarely crossed paths outside of occasional reunions, even our WeChat group was completely dead. My relationship with Lin Wuyong was actually quite ordinary, and we had not spoken in years. I only heard that he took the civil service exam. If it were not for Qiu Wuji and her identity issue, I would never have reached out to him so abruptly. I rubbed my temples. Definitely could not be done through regular channels. Unless I knew some high-ranking official. It would be really hard for an ordinary person to handle. Should I just declare that she is a time traveler? Showing off a few immortal tricks might even get me treated as an honored guest. After all, the history of Qigong masters is right there. Not to mention Qiu Wuji still possesses the longevity method. Those superstitious folks love this kind of thing. I just do not know if the longevity method from the book can be practiced in the real world. Wait, if it is possible, could I practice it myself? I quickly dismissed the thought with a scoff. If I really did that, Qiu Wuji would inevitably lose her normal freedom. I'd likely have to live in a designated place. Couldn't just go out whenever I wanted. And would have to cooperate with government research when needed. Qiu Wuji roams the world freely. And there is no way she would accept that. I don't really want to consider that path. For Qiu Wuji's sake. She definitely wouldn't want to end up in that situation. Besides, if I'm being selfish, this is something only I have. The character from my book might even become my wife. Well, even if she doesn't, we can still live together. I'm definitely not handing her over for research. But then again, there's nothing to worry about. After all, Qiu Wuji is a cultivator. And she has roots in another world. She's not some poor girl who can't go home. And gets tricked into having 5 children like some ancient maiden. She's an immortal. Roaming the heavens and sailing the 4 seas. How could she be bound by a mere identity? While I was thinking about this, my stomach started protesting. Better get back to writing. If I don't, I won't even be able to afford food. Still dreaming of making a fairy my wife. The book's performance is my lifeline. As I placed my hands on the keyboard, I suddenly felt that Qiu Wuji interfering with my plot is a bit like a writer wanting to start a harem, yet being forced by my wife to write only a single heroine romance. Still, it feels pretty good overall. I respect her. And exploring the connection and fate between our 2 worlds together is a really interesting experience. Since I am enjoying the female lead, I naturally need to figure out how she managed to cross over. Otherwise, what if the passage between the 2 worlds suddenly closes one day? If we happen to be deeply in love by then, people could literally die from that. I have to get to the bottom of this. Meanwhile, back in the book world, Qiu Wuji enters the lowest level of the 10,000 Snake Cave. The pool ahead is shrouded in mist, with a strange scale floating above it. The glowing light of the treasure intertwines with a faint bloody hue. The blood color is somewhat dim. Qiu Wuji knows this is the Azure Dragon Shed scale. This fallen dragon pool holds many mysteries. Truly a dangerous place. Instead of flying forward, Qiu Wuji slowly rolls out her silk ribbon, trying to pull the Azure Dragon Shed scale over from a distance. With a pull, she actually fails to budge it. It feels like an immense suction force is firmly anchoring the scale above the pool. A bloody aura pierces right through the ribbon, making her blood churn wildly and driving her to the brink of madness. Qiu Wuji collects her thoughts and calms her mind, slowly dispelling this aura of bloodlust. The force holding the scale could not resist her pull, as the scale finally began to move. Right at that moment, from within the smoke behind her, a blood-colored demonic hand emerged. Looking at the complaints in the review section and chat groups about leaving cliffhangers, I felt refreshed. If I did not do this, how would you keep reading? In the next chapter, I took a deep breath, my expression turning much more serious. and began writing the next chapter. That was the key part. Qiu Wuji composed herself and focused her mind, slowly dispelling this aura of bloodlust. The force holding the scale could not resist her pull. As the scale finally began to move, suddenly from within the smoke behind her, a blood-colored demonic hand emerged. As if she had eyes in the back of her head, Qiu Wuji decisively let go of the ribbon and whipped around, stabbing her sword directly into the bloody demonic hand, producing a crisp sound like metal clashing. A sinister laughter echoed from within the smoke. Ha ha. Truly worthy of the boundless clear autumn skies, with divine intent rooted in the heart, clear as the moon reflected in the water. She truly cannot be ambushed so easily. A gaunt and withered elder slowly materialized, his face nothing but skin and bones, looking like a skeleton brought to life, with a savage glare in his eyes. It was the poison-handed demon lord. Qiu Wuji spoke up, suddenly finding the writing rather mediocre, portraying villains just by slapping labels on them. The poison-handed demon lord was stunned for a moment, wondering what she was talking about. We are both in the same major realm. How come I cannot understand your Dao cultivation? Qiu Wuji lowered her eyelids slightly and looked at the sword tip. You already sneaked into this place yesterday, but because you could not break the maze of this lair, you were delayed outside. When I broke through the formation and entered, you quietly tailed behind. The poison-handed demon lord was startled out of his wits, thinking, how did she know? It is as if she was watching every move I made. This should not be happening. If she always knew I was lurking around, why did she not deal with me outside, instead of letting me bring myself inside? Is there a conspiracy? The poison-handed demon lord had these thoughts flashing rapidly, yet he still said, since Sect Master Qiu knows, then so be it. Ha ha, Sect Master Qiu knows well. Matters of the world go by first come, first served. I clearly arrived here first. Shouldn't it at least be shared by those who see it? Even as he spoke, a dark red centipede quietly slipped out from his sleeve and slithered away along the ground. Qiu Wuji acted as if she noticed nothing and said indifferently, shared by those who see it, I agree. Just like how I see you at this moment. So your life is mine. Inside the narrow cave, sword light filled all directions, overwhelming and densely layered. It shot toward the poison-handed demon lord in the center with fatal intent. The poison-handed demon lord did not even have time to activate his hidden trump card. With his blood banner fluttering in hand, he struggled bitterly against the ultimate move of Qiu Wuji, crying out in despair in his heart. Was Qiu Wuji possessed by someone? Shouldn't she have gotten angry at my sophistry about sharing what is seen, and argued that I was the one who broke into the formation first? Why did she strike with a killing blow right away? This woman attacks too suddenly. I originally had a trump card planted, but that blood-colored centipede required spiritual consciousness to communicate and drive. Yet Qiu Wuji's sword net was like autumn waters connecting to the sky, endlessly continuous. Even my spiritual sense was shredded to pieces when I tried to reach out, making it impossible to pull any sneaky moves. Qiu Wuji unleashed her sword technique and began forming a fire incantation in her hand. This was the Void Fire, specifically designed to break banner-type magic treasures. With a deafening roar followed by a miserable scream, poison-handed demon lord's natal magic treasure was just gone. How did Qiu Wuji become so ruthless? We were both in the same major realm. I thought we were evenly matched, and figured my dirty tricks would guarantee a win. It was only during our actual clash that I realized realm does not equal combat power. Qiu Wuji is definitely way stronger than me. Gritting his teeth, poison-handed demon lord prepared to sacrifice his cultivation to escape with his primordial spirit. Right at this moment, the blood-red centipede I released earlier without having time to control crawled on its own to the edge of the dragon fall pool. Mist seeped thread by thread from the pool into its body, and the centipede swelled up visibly to the naked eye. Qiu Wuji had been keeping an eye on this centipede, seeing it undergo spontaneous changes without any control. Her heart sank, and the fire incantation in her hand quickly shifted, heading straight for the centipede. With a bang, the centipede was blown to pieces as its flesh exploded, splattering onto the azure dragon molted scale. The next moment, a powerful wave of dragon might pierce through the air. It was an indiscriminate attack on everyone in the cave. Qiu Wuji wrapped her ribbons around herself, forming a nebula-like shroud to barely withstand the dragon's wrath. Across from her, a fierce look flashed in the poison-handed demon lord's eyes. His body exploded just like his centipede, but this blast was far more violent. The powerful impact rushed toward her, and Qiu Wuji, already struggling against the dragon's aura, couldn't hold on. She was blasted straight into the dragonfall pool. At the same time, a primordial spirit flew away. The poison-handed demon lord's sinister laughter echoed in the air. Ha ha, I will definitely avenge the destruction of my body one day. Qiu Wuji was completely powerless to stop the spirit from escaping. The toxic gas from the Dragon Fall pool instantly flooded her body. She didn't have the heart to worry about the poison-handed demon lord spirit. As she felt the toxins invading her body, only one thought echoed in her mind. Am I really going to be poisoned? Is the will of heaven truly unavoidable? Holding her breath in the pool, Qiu Wuji sighed, though she wasn't exactly disappointed. It was within expectations. If small details like clothing can defy what is written in the book, then wanting to reverse major events was simply wishful thinking. If she could casually overturn the course of the entire world, it would inevitably differ from what Chu Ge wrote. Wouldn't that throw everything into chaos? Strictly speaking, Qiu Wuji did not have an extremely resolute determination to force a reversal this time. Knowing full well that the poison-handed demon lord had released the centipede, she did not clear it away beforehand. She merely wanted to observe what the centipede would do. This was not a fate she was dead set on cutting down, but rather an observation. If it ultimately led to failure, it did not matter. She did not know why she was not all that steadfast. Perhaps there was a tiny possibility that she worried a real reversal would cause trouble for Chu Ge on the other side. At best, his book would crash and his rankings would vanish. And at worst, it might affect his health or even his safety. Qiu Wuji was unsure. Yet she had still kept her defenses fully up against a sneak attack. To be so eerily corrected by the world in the end. She did not know whether to feel disappointed or relieved. At that moment, Chu Ge's words echoed in her mind. You found the antidote yourself at the bottom of the pool. And it has nothing to do with Chu Ge. This fits the logic of a novel. The antidote is usually found growing right where the deadliest poisons are. Qiu Wuji dove deeper into the pool, spreading out her divine sense. She pierced through the heavy mists, and indeed spotted a vibrant mushroom, growing at the edge of the pool floor. Qiu Wuji swam right up to the mushroom, and gently stroked it. Even though vibrant colors usually meant poison, it actually looked rather cute this time. Touching the mushroom cap felt oddly like patting Chu Ge on the head. Without hesitation, she plucked the mushroom, swallowed it, and flashed away from the pool floor. No sooner had she sat cross-legged outside the pool to channel her energy than she heard footsteps approaching. Chu Ge stumbled in through the cave entrance that the poison-handed demon lord had smashed open earlier. Greetings, Sect Master. Seeing Qiu Wuji looking so pale, he hurriedly asked, Sect Master, are you injured? Qiu Wuji opened her eyes and smiled faintly, saying she had accidentally been poisoned and was currently neutralizing it. I actually happen to have here. Chu Ge was cut off before he could finish. I know you have a snake saliva fruit in your pocket that can cure the poison. Keep it to refine your pills instead. That is good stuff. Chu Ge froze for a moment. He thought the sect master was truly unfathomable without even needing divination. Someone this powerful could naturally detoxify himself. There was nothing to ask. Deep inside, Chu Ge felt a deep sense of awe welling up toward the sect master. He bowed and backed away. Qiu Wuji watched his figure leave. She knew that the red string someone randomly tied had now been thoroughly and completely snapped. Logically speaking, the essence of this instance dungeon was custom designed for Chu Ge. The purpose was for him to use the Azure Dragon Molted Scale as a catalyst to gain my appreciation. But now the situation was different. This fortuitous encounter could only be mine. Although I was poisoned, the process of drawing out and neutralizing the poison happened to temper my body. Furthermore, the Azure Dragon Molted Scale was a top-tier item for refining the divine soul. I wondered how long I would be able to stay next time. Meanwhile, back in the real world, I rested my head on one hand. I silently watched the review section explode. Author Fat Cat number 2, this is ridiculous. Qiu Wuji picked mushrooms by herself to detoxify? Big Chu, blink if you are being held hostage. Chu Ge tossed and turned for half a day, only to exchange a few words with Qiu Wuji and leave. Nothing happened at all. I thought this book was a harem novel. Why does it feel wrong now? That is only natural. A harem novel where the female lead gets poisoned. Not even using the cliché of aphrodisiacs and detoxification. The protagonist should at least step in to help and share a romantic moment, so that the gentleman reading gets some payoff for this moment. Yet the author refuses to write it, meaning the poisoning was pointless. What is the point of this plot design? What kind of harem novel is this? The readers were in an uproar. That is completely normal. If Chu Ge himself read this while reading a book, he would curse out loud. But Qiu Wuji had forbidden any physical contact, let alone her forbidding it. I did not want it either. Get lost, who even is Chu Ge? He does not deserve it. Risking the complete failure of the book. Being jealous of my own protagonist. I do not know if I am a pioneer, or a one-of-a-kind author, but I do not regret it. All for the sake of Qiu Wuji and her vibrant, beautiful smile. Zhang Qiren said I should either switch to writing stock market plots, or remove the female lead entirely. Treating beauties as mere bones always has a certain audience. I even thought about making Qiu Wuji the protagonist. Too bad this is not a female-oriented web novel. This is a prison I drew for myself. My future remains uncertain. This is a gamble. Finding amusement in my own misery. I laughed for a while. In the end, I let out a soft sigh. I stood up to get some water to drink. Just as I turned my head, I saw Qiu Wuji standing quietly behind me. Her gaze seemed to have just withdrawn from the closed browser tab and landed on my face. We stood facing each other like a frozen frame, staring at each other in silence. I was still holding my cup in my hand, which looked a little comical. Yet neither of us cared about that. After a long while, Qiu Wuji gave a faint smile and said softly, "Thank you. Thank you so much. How on earth are you supposed to wash black silk stockings and panties without leaving them wrinkled and make your girlfriend suspect you used them?" Just a moment ago, Qiu Wuji arrived in the real world once again. Taking advantage of a gap while washing cups, I asked, "Poison-handed demon lord, how did that matter turn out?" Qiu Wuji leaned against the doorframe, crossed her arms, and said, "I was still poisoned. It feels like major events will follow the trajectory of your writing. So I corrected it." I paused my movements and suddenly turned my head. "Is being poisoned painful?" Qiu Wuji was clearly stunned for a moment. Fortunately, the antidote worked quickly. This was a question that none of the sect members, including Chu Ge, had ever asked before. Not even the most loyal elders and disciples. This had nothing to do with whether I wrote it or not. Characters should have their own expressions outside of the established script, but no one had ever asked this. It was only because I am a powerful sect master, capable of anything. Wait, does he see me as a life form he created, and therefore has the responsibility to care for me? Or does he see me as an ordinary woman? Qiu Wuji suddenly had a very strange feeling. The feeling of someone caring for her. It was a bit embarrassing, yet very warm. I poured 2 cups of tea and said, "Come to think of it, the important events I write are inescapable fates for you. If I had written that the poison-handed demon lord died by your hand instead of his primordial spirit escaping, he probably would have died." Qiu Wuji found it strange. Why did I write that he escaped? I gave an awkward smile. Strong villains like him need to be saved as stepping stones for the protagonist. If he were killed by you so early, I would have to create another one. "No need," Qiu Wuji said, rolling his eyes. I also noticed that Qiu Wuji's expressions were much more varied than before. He seemed more alive. Qiu Wuji sighed and walked back to the living room. "So, you are our destiny, huh?" Feeling pretty smug about it, I grabbed a dining chair and followed him. Maybe I can be considered the destiny of your world, but in a broader sense, no. For example, I don't know why you were able to come out, nor do I know if my book is going to flop. I paused and smiled again. Our meeting was destined, but that destiny isn't me. Qiu Wuji was stunned for a moment and said nothing. I suddenly asked, "I've been thinking about something. Can I practice your cultivation method?" I clearly don't know any cultivation methods. That was a result I made up. Could I write a method to cultivate immortality for myself? Qiu Wuji also found this quite interesting. Then I will teach you. If our physical structures are no different, you should definitely be able to learn it. The main problem is that spiritual energy in this realm is very thin. Even if you practice it, there will not be much effect. I nodded. Perhaps this obstruction of spiritual energy is a patch to prevent me from being too bugged. Qiu Wuji chuckled. You write so much that you probably think you are written in someone's book too? Patches. Stop nesting Russian dolls. I said seriously. And then sat down on the ground. Why not give it a try first? Qiu Wuji walked forward and pressed her finger against my glabella, asking if this technique was written by me. No, the world probably just derived it on its own based on my nonsense. I copied some content from Taoist scriptures, like the 7 satchels of the cloudy satchel. I want to take a look at the Taoist scriptures of this world. I bought reference materials for this kind of thing. Don't look at it as just words. Storing them on the computer takes up several gigabytes. Qiu Wuji temporarily did not understand what gigabytes were, but it sounded like a lot. So she was in no hurry. Returning to the topic, Qiu Wuji said, "What I just passed on to you was the mental method. Now I will teach you the method of circulating qi. You need to remember it carefully. Any slight deviation will cause problems. You should be well aware of that. The cultivation method of our sect is the most righteous of all. It focuses on the 13 principal meridians. The extraordinary meridians are secondary. This is... Wait. I asked cautiously, where exactly are the 12 principal meridians? How am I supposed to circulate qi? Qiu Wuji's eyes widened. This is what you wrote. You wrote our sect's method. The cultivation method of the 13 principal meridians. And then you asked me where the 13 meridians are. Qiu Wuji really wanted to hit me. Don't say I'm being unreasonable and bullying you. Anyone else would beat you up just the same. Qiu Wuji finally lost her patience. She flipped me onto the sofa and beat me up. Where? Where is it? You tell me where it is. I hugged my head and took the beating. Only this time, Her blows did not hurt at all. Instead, there was only a pleasant fragrance. Qiu Wuji was holding back her strength when hitting me. After beating me for a little while, she felt it was pointless too. So she got up looking all huffy and gave a cold snort. She walked over to the balcony to get some fresh air. At a single glance, she saw her clothes hanging outside. They were fluttering in the wind. Qiu Wuji's mouth fell half open. She stood there in a daze, staring at her own stockings. They were wrinkled and swaying in the breeze. It felt as if someone had been crumpling them in their hands. A flush quickly climbed up her cheeks. She never expected anything like this when she left. Her intimate garments, worn right against her skin, had been picked up by him in a split second. There was no telling what he had done with them, and you could not even ask him about it. After all, on the surface, he was just doing you a favor by washing them. Was she supposed to go beat him up over it? Qiu Wuji held it in for a long time. Her lips moved for a good while before she managed to squeeze out a sentence. You do not need to wash my clothes from now on. I can do it myself. I was still lying on the floor recovering from the shock when I froze for a moment. When I saw the clothes on the balcony, my face darkened a bit too. What was up with those stockings crunched into a ball? Why did it look like I had been doing something weird to them? I swear I did not do anything at all. The black silk stockings, changed by an ancient fairy for the first time, had ended up looking like a complete mess thanks to this man. I looked at that wrinkled ball of black silk and could not help thinking. Could it be that I have some kind of sleepwalking fetish? Oh no, I am going to get beaten up again. Qiu Wuji kept a straight face and glared at me for a long time. She didn't hit me, but she wondered if a man and woman living together could really be as pure as they claim, as long as their consciences were clear. She took a deep breath and said, from now on, I'll just manifest these clothes myself. I was distracted last time and didn't think it through. I could have saved that money. I shook my head. It's not that you didn't think it through. You just wanted to experience the lifestyle of this world. Since you're so eager to blend in, why use manifestations? Besides, my writing fees arrived today, and I'm making over 10,000 a month now. I'm not that broke, so no need to rush to pay me back. Qiu Wuji finally couldn't help but sneer. I think you just want physical clothes so you can do something with them, right? I jumped up and shouted. I'm not a pervert. Actually, I didn't even know if I wanted to do something. I just felt that physical objects were more real than manifestations. The moment she left her clothes behind was far more touching than the last time she disappeared. It made me truly feel the sense of parting. Fortunately, she returned quickly. It was just like going on a business trip. This time, she felt even more vibrant upon her return. She was less like a two-dimensional, flatly written fairy, and more like a fully three-dimensional presence in the mortal world. Qiu Wuji collected her clothes from the balcony and went inside to change. When she walked out, she was once again an office lady with an elegant aura, meeting my eyes, which were shining with excitement. She curled her lips. A guy like you would be a villain in your own book. Or maybe a protagonist. I said with a straight face. Any man other than the protagonist acting like this would be a villain. Qiu Wuji chuckled softly. It seems your Chu Ge hides things well in front of me. He acts better than you do. That is not true. Chu Ge really has no designs on you right now. Do not go back and beat him up. Qiu Wuji asked, does that mean you admit you have designs on me? If I beat him up, would I be beating myself up too? Qiu Wuji was both exasperated and amused. She said helplessly, I need to buy a pair of socks. The previous pair is no longer wearable. I looked at her legs. She even conjured a pair of magical stockings just to cover her legs. It was unexpectedly cute. She still does not know. Many people are actually looking at the black silk stockings, rather than her legs themselves. If she knew, would she think the whole world is full of perverted villains? Qiu Wuji told me, all right, sit cross-legged. I'll guide your meridians, so position your 5 points toward the sky. If you say you don't know again, I'll beat you. I looked pitiful and took the position. Qiu Wuji stepped forward, looked me over for a while, and corrected my posture and the position of my hands and feet. As we touched, a fresh scent wafted over me. My mind started racing, and I immediately took a sharp knock to the head. Qiu Wuji sneered, what are you thinking about? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Now you're reading my mind, huh? Qiu Wuji sneered, anyone can see right through you. Suddenly, a piercing pain shot through my neck and shoulders. I felt as if a meridian was being stretched, leaving me drenched in sweat. Qiu Wuji kept pressing on my shoulder, her expression turning stern. She said, your body is strong on the outside but incredibly weak on the inside. Your meridians are all congested and blocked. That's one thing. But while you look tall and strong, your muscles are actually slack and your internal organs are unsettled. I felt a bit embarrassed. I also knew that my body was in a subhealthy state. I looked fine, but I was actually full of issues. Qiu Wuji pulled back her hand. She shook her head and said, your physique cannot practice cultivation for now. You need to rest and recuperate first. Too weak. Could she stop emphasizing that word weak? It made me feel like she meant something else entirely. Qiu Wuji cast a disdainful sideways glance at me. She was an older, mature beauty who had practiced Tao for several millennia after all. She was no innocent little girl. Without even thinking, Qiu Wuji knew what I was considering. I hurriedly waved my hand. Damn it. I am starting to exercise today. Mealtime arrived quickly. I brought Qiu Wuji to a restaurant outside. We ordered a portion of braised chicken. It is not just about exercise. You also need to pay attention to your diet and daily routine. Qiu Wuji said while eating. You eat in such an irregular manner. The other day, you only ate dinner at midnight. And supposedly you had not eaten all day. This hurts the stomach. And you always stay up late. This hurts the liver. I felt somewhat depressed. You immortals can go without eating or sleeping just fine. Qiu Wuji remained unconcerned. Is not cultivation precisely for the sake of achieving that? Do things ordinary people cannot do? Damn, that makes sense. I probed further. Then should I call you master now? Qiu Wuji looked at me with a half-smile, resisting the urge to smash the braised chicken in my face. She said calmly, then should I call you Father God? I was overjoyed. That sounds great. We can address each other however we want. Ouch. Qiu Wuji pulled back her high heel from under the table. According to my life experience, cooking at home is clearly cheaper and cleaner than eating out. You are not rich. Why do you eat out every day? Could this also be a difference in this world? This part is the same. The difference is that this world has many lazy people. Like me, I suddenly got inspired and asked, hey, can you cook? I never wrote about your past before you started cultivating. Qiu Wuji kept her expressionless face. You did not write it. But you must have imagined or conceived it. According to my character setting, Qiu Wuji is capable in the living room and the kitchen. That goes without saying. I felt deeply relieved. It is wonderful that everything matches the setting. So you can't? Qiu Wuji sneered, saying so what if she knows how? Why should she cook for me? I put my foot down, telling her this counts as rent. Go buy groceries. We do not need firewood, as the apartment has a gas stove, rice, and seasonings. I will check out the supermarket. I also need to buy socks. Buy them, buy bundles of them. To ensure my own longevity. I actually agreed to buy black stockings for my fairy roommate. They even had to be lace style. The clerk nodded knowingly and asked if we wanted silk ones too. Qiu Wuji did not quite understand and walked on her own toward the pajamas cabinet. Her gaze landed on 2 identical sets of silk pajamas. Taking advantage of the clerk checking inventory, I walked over and asked if she wanted these. We could get a matching set. Qiu Wuji had no concept of couple outfits. So she asked why the clothes for men and women were completely identical. I waved my hand dismissively. Does your sect not wear uniform attire? Living and sleeping together, it is only natural for our own people to wear the same thing. The logic sounded completely normal. Yet Qiu Wuji felt something was off no matter how she thought about it. It felt like I was tricking a 10,000-year-old elder. Still, she ultimately nodded and said fine. Hearing that, I immediately turned to the clerk and called out hello. We will add 2 more sets of pajamas. When it came time to pay at the end, however, Qiu Wuji noticed the pajamas had been swapped out. The clerk enthusiastically complimented me, saying, you have great taste. These pajamas happen to be on sale. Qiu Wuji looked at the cute baby prints on them, thinking to herself that she was a dignified and awe-inspiring master who commanded the universe, and asking herself if she was really supposed to wear clothes with children's patterns. Unfortunately, her financial backer gave her no room to object. I happily bought the couple's pajamas and paid to leave. Qiu Wuji also made a vow in her heart, vowing that she must start making money. After buying the pajamas, the 2 of us went to the supermarket and bought a bunch of daily necessities. By the time we got home, I was already exhausted and collapsed on the floor. Qiu Wuji followed behind with 2 bags of rice on her shoulder. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Over just carrying a few little things. I shamelessly replied. You already said I was weak anyway. To you, 20 pounds of stuff is basically like holding an embroidery needle. This is what they call the capable doing more work. Can having strength or being able to fight make you money? Qiu Wuji suddenly asked. Does it require an identity too? I helped put the rice on the ground. I nodded and said you can make money and even become a big shot. But all of that requires proper identity. Unless you cross national borders and run off to a war zone, which is a bit too difficult and unnecessary for now. Qiu Wuji looked rather helpless. Fine, I will go check out the kitchen first. I actually wanted to say that I could support her, but after throwing out such a proud and cool line earlier, it was hard to take it back now. Of course, Qiu Wuji herself was not willing to depend on others, since she was already trying to break free from the constraints of the creation god's will. She naturally needed equal exchange to be an independently existing individual. Cooking counted as labor and could pay for the rent. Even though it was a bit embarrassing, it was still better than owing me favors. Qiu Wuji opened the dust-covered stove and was immediately choked by the smoke and dust. Just how long had this kitchen been in use? At least half a year, probably. I poked my head in to say something and then fled in a hurry, looking at my flushed face as I ran away. Qiu Wuji's eyes also flashed with a hint of fox-like slyness. With a smile, she flicked her slender fingers. As a flash of light swept by, the entire kitchen instantly became spotless. Silly creation, God. I am an immortal cultivator. A cleansing spell is just a minor technique after all. I was outside calling for an LPG delivery while peeking into the kitchen. The spotless kitchen only stunned me for a moment. But I quickly realized what was happening, and my gaze became fixed on Qiu Wuji's back as she was dressed in office wear. She was busy organizing the seasonings into small containers. Looking at her from behind, I cursed my lack of writing skills, as I couldn't find the words to describe the scene or how I felt. Qiu Wuji turned around and asked, "Who are you talking to?" "I'm ordering some LPG," I replied. "Then why did you stop talking mid-sentence?" she asked. "Because I was looking at you," I answered. Qiu Wuji gave me a look that suggested she wanted to punch me. I quickly made a run for it. Qiu Wuji huffed and went back to organizing her things. I sat on the sofa and opened the review section for my book. Wait, why are they fighting in the comments? Curious, Qiu Wuji leaned over and asked, "What's going on?" I gave her a brief explanation. Qiu Wuji shook her head helplessly. "I don't understand your world, fighting over how someone else's book is written. Will their destinies be arranged just like mine, caring so much about it? You guys also argue because of different beliefs and principles. It is actually pretty much the same. Everyone has their own thoughts. Unifying opinions is the hardest part." Although Qiu Wuji found it hard to accept mixing novels with Taoist principles, she still understood the logic behind it. She only had one thought in mind. People in this world sure have a lot of free time. I looked blankly at the review section and muttered to myself, that is strange. Logically speaking, readers of a romance without a main heroine should not care this much. Why are so many people rushing here to debate? This does not make sense. I curiously checked my private messages on the platform, and there were no recommendation updates. It was not driven by traffic algorithms. And third-party forums had no relevant discussions either. I had only written about a character saving themselves from poison. How did it end up causing such a debate on the forum? Qiu Wuji was a bit worried, thinking that forcing me to change the plot had caused me a lot of trouble. So she asked, "Is this good or bad for you?" I stood up and smiled, saying it is naturally a good thing. I was originally worried that if the old readers stopped reading, there would be no new ones. "Look, aren't these new readers here now?" Qiu Wuji nodded and did not say much more, though she still felt a little bit of guilt in her heart. I, however, stopped dwelling on it. "All right, stop looking at my review section. The history books you wanted arrived a couple of days ago." So fast, Qiu Wuji followed my gaze. And sure enough, there was a neat stack of books in the corner of the wall. She picked up the books and looked at them seriously. 5,000 years of Chinese history. Your civilization is truly young. She thought to herself, not even as old as my age. I held back a strange expression for a long moment. "All right, I know you are an old lady now." Qiu Wuji's gaze turned dangerous. "If you really want to be picky, a cultivation world where civilization never changes or develops for tens of thousands of years is completely unreasonable to begin with. But then again, those ages of tens of millions of years are all just us writers talking nonsense. If you really get serious, it's just illogical. The core of cultivation novels is cultivation. But this book is about social change." Qiu Wuji let out a thoughtful hum. Then, he sat by the bay window and began to carefully read this history of civilization book, which was even younger than he was. I rested my head on one hand and stared blankly for a while. Then I suddenly said, "All right, and you read." This scene is practically a painting. I felt like I was acting quite sophisticated and creating a real mood. Suddenly, a knock at the door followed. The mood was instantly shattered by the liquefied gas delivery man. The trivialities of daily life came rushing back. Seeing my embarrassed expression, Qiu Wuji couldn't help but laugh. On the other side of the city, Zhang Qiren was in a female lead forum that I had never paid attention to, and he closed the thread. "Brother, this is as much as I can help you." I felt that the picturesque scene was actually coming true. I sat at the computer, focusing on my writing, while Qiu Wuji sat quietly reading by the bay window. The rhythmic clicking of the keyboard filled the room. The rustle of turning leaves intertwined with the background music of the painting. The summer afternoon felt so peaceful. Qiu Wuji watched as I set aside my empty cup and continued typing. A thought flashed through her mind that I was working hard while she was doing nothing. Should she help pour me some water or tea so I could focus on writing in peace? Yet this reasonable thought was quickly shaken off by herself. What was she even thinking? Was she acting like a companion adding fragrance to a scholar's study? Where did such a notion that completely went against her nature even come from? Could this guy be patching things secretly again? Qiu Wuji continued to immerse herself in that vast ocean of 5,000 years of history. Meanwhile, my train of thought was becoming smoother and smoother. Now Chu Tiange. could only walk down a path of solitary and cold cultivation. Although it was different from my usual writing style, writing without a female lead really is much easier. I did not need to worry about scenes where the female lead vanishes, nor did I need to consider the entanglements of offending enemies, or bother with character shaping. It was truly a vast sea and sky to write whatever I wanted. I even felt that I was getting more and more of Zhang Qiren's writing vibe. If this could take off, would it count as vindicating Zhang Qiren in a sense? I finished the new chapter, saved it, and published it. The review section was quieter than before. The disappointed readers had already left, and the writing style felt a bit like some dropped author. I refreshed the back-end dashboard. To my surprise, the retention data dropped less than expected. I had thought at least half of my fans would flee. As it turned out, only about a tenth of them left. Suddenly, a wave of fragrance interrupted my thoughts. It was the sound of cooking and the smell of food coming from the kitchen. I walked over and stared blankly at the sight of a wok cooking on its own. Next to it stood a cutting board, and a kitchen knife was chopping vegetables automatically. Qiu Wuji was just standing nearby, continuing to read her book. I could not help thinking that the Qiu Wuji I originally created was someone who could dominate the world, yet enjoy a peaceful domestic life. Yet in the book, she was still far from showing this virtuous and homely side. I never expected that in reality. It would accidentally plunge her into a domestic atmosphere ahead of time. Qiu Wuji also noticed me leaning against the doorframe. She closed her book and said, "What is it? Have you never seen an immortal cook?" "There is nothing I have not seen. I really have never seen this." I was left speechless and amused. Why not just magic it fully cooked right away? Qiu Wuji thought about it and said it would lack the feeling. This job is better done with some finesse. I am going to eat it too. Then she snapped her fingers, and the dishes in the pot automatically flew onto the plates, arranged in perfect order. Today's menu was very simple. Just ribs, cabbage, and scrambled eggs. When the food was served, I almost swallowed my own tongue from how good it tasted. It was simply too delicious. Is this cabbage even the cabbage I had in mind? What is it like to use immortal cultivation levels of flame and object control to cook ordinary food? The experience was that takeout outside instantly turned into pig slop. Qiu Wuji ate with a beaming smile on her face. I could make a fortune as a master chef, right? I put down my chopsticks and nodded. If Qiu Wuji had an identity, she could make a killing doing literally anything. An immortal cultivator is basically a walking bug in reality. I sighed and said I asked quite a few people. And setting up an identity for you like this is indeed quite difficult, unless you gradually leave traces of life in this world, and even build some seemingly real records of existence. In other cities as well. Qiu Wuji looked like she had expected this. Indeed, if a fresh face suddenly popped up in the sect, nobody would believe it if I said they were my disciple, because they simply were not. However, Qiu Wuji soon smiled, and said that if this was too troublesome, we could just drop it. She really did not want to bother rushing around trapped in a single identity. Besides, did she not already have something to pay the rent with now? Once she understood the situation of this world better, she would go out. I sighed inwardly, took a bite of food, and asked how much of the book she had read. Were there any parts she found hard to understand and needed me to explain? Qiu Wuji shook her head and said not for now. The ancient times of this world had many similarities with the world in the book. I had even adapted many mythological legends into it, such as the four symbols. From her perspective, ancient times were much easier to relate to than the present environment and quite interesting. As Qiu Wuji spoke, her expression turned somewhat dazed. She felt like our world should have originally possessed spiritual energy. I burped. Many books had this kind of setting, such as it dissipating after the separation of heaven and earth, or after the dragon veins were severed. Qiu Wuji shook her head, saying it had not completely dissipated either. There was still some relatively thin energy left, and then she paused. She hesitated and said, "I do not know if it is just my imagination. I feel like the spiritual energy I sensed coming over this time is slightly denser than last time, but the quality is too thin, so I cannot be sure." I raised my head, my eyes turning serious. Could the resurgence of spiritual energy be the reason why she ran out of the book? If so, then the special circumstances of this world might not apply to just me alone. The girl opened her collar and peeked inside. Living together with the opposite sex is truly troublesome. Having a man taking a shower stark naked just behind a single door really makes one's heart unsettled. Just moments ago, after finishing dinner, I sat on the sofa in a daze. If the world is truly experiencing a resurgence of spiritual energy, what I need to do might not be limited to just cowering in my room and typing. Those gatherings I originally planned to cancel should probably be attended as well. For example, the Online Writers Association gathering, small circles of writers, and class reunions. I should especially interact more with professionals like Lin Wuyang, since I might accidentally learn about some surreal situations from them. To find out why Qiu Wuji ran out of the book. I certainly cannot figure it out just by sitting in front of my computer typing. The more I thought about it, the more annoyed I became. Because I really do not like socializing. Could it be that aside from my work going haywire, my life has completely changed too? However, watching Qiu Wuji quietly tidy up the bowls and chopsticks to wash them, that lingering headache vanished instantly, as if a soft hand had just massaged it away. For the sake of this moment, what did making a few changes matter anyway? The first thing that needed to change was exercise. The next afternoon, I finished writing today's chapter early and actually started my fitness journey around 5 o'clock. Only I stopped running like a tired dog before even 10 minutes were up. I panted while bracing my knees. I cannot do this anymore, just spare me. Qiu Wuji followed right behind me in a blue athletic top and shorts, saying leisurely, "Hurry up, there are still 50 laps to go." Qiu Wuji told me to get moving and asked why I could only pull myself down without any ups. I told her to shut up and asked what kind of weird cultivation posture that even was. This is called a push-up. What does an old-timer like you know about it? I collapsed flat on the ground after 3 minutes, gritting my teeth. Qiu Wuji's gaze turned strange once again. Is this your idea of a strong suit in exercise? I could no longer keep a straight face and leaped back up. Why do you keep staring at me? Just read your book. Qiu Wuji scoffed. She hugged her book and walked over to the sofa. I could not bring myself to exercise anymore. I grabbed my pajamas and headed to the bathroom in a huff. Just as I went in, I poked my head back out. Right? Do you want to take a shower? Given your current cultivation level, you have not even reached penury yet. You probably have not attained bodily purity either. Qiu Wuji replied calmly. I know the cleansing art. Why do you not try it too? It saves both time and effort. I shrank back inside. No thanks, that feels way too weird. It does not feel like a proper bath at all. The bathroom door closed. Soon, the sound of splashing water came from inside. Qiu Wuji rested the book on her lap. Her gaze was somewhat hesitant. Living together as a man and woman really is troublesome. Knowing that there is only a door separating us, and that a man is bathing stark naked in there, is truly unsettling. Well, a clear breeze and a bright moon. Anyway, I cannot see anything. Qiu Wuji pulled down her collar and looked inside. What he said earlier actually seemed to make some sense. Even though I know the cleansing spell, even the original body would occasionally feel that soaking in a bath was better than using spells. So his words just now were on purpose. After all, he understood my habits. He just wanted to experience the feeling of a woman taking a bath on the other side of the door. Ugh, how shameless. I refused to wash out of spite. Qiu Wuji indignantly left her seat and returned to the second bedroom. As soon as she stepped inside, she froze. Originally, the second bedroom had no bedding, just a bare bedboard. She had planned to continue sitting cross-legged in meditation. But walking in this time, she saw that the sheets, pillows, and blankets were already neatly made. They even gave off a faint fragrance. Did Chu Ge buy these and put them here before she even came back? Just how much was he looking forward to living with someone? I really do not need to sleep. Qiu Wuji silently looked at the little pig pillow on the bed, unsure what to make of it. The ancient immortal maiden secretly took her first bath, only to be caught red-handed by her perverted cohabitant. The maiden's face flushed red as she prepared to find an excuse to lash out. But the pervert's next words left her rooted to the spot. Just moments ago, Chu Ge, who had resolved to adjust his daily routine, had typed out another half-chapter as a buffer for tomorrow, and went to bed. The air conditioner hummed softly, bringing a comfortable coolness to this scorching summer day. It faintly smoothed away the restlessness in my heart. I stared with wide eyes at the ceiling, wondering if Qiu Wuji knew how to use an air conditioner, though she seemed immune to heat and cold, often walking outside in thick ritual robes. Strangely enough, despite exercising for so long today, I was still not tired. After tossing and turning for an hour, I, unaccustomed to sleeping early, finally got out of bed, intending to use the bathroom first. Just as I stepped out of my room, I ran straight into Qiu Wuji, sneaking out of the bathroom like a thief. The two of us bumped into each other in the middle of the living room in utter shock. I stared blankly at Qiu Wuji, who had just stepped out of the bath. Her damp hair carried the refreshing fragrance of shampoo. She looked like a fully ripened flower, dripping with freshness. We were wearing the exact same matching couple pajamas. The smiling doll faces on our clothes gazed at each other, looking unimaginably cute. The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. Qiu Wuji's face gradually turned as red as blood. Getting caught taking a stealthy bath was bad enough. But these clothes were truly humiliating. What kind of unified sect disciple uniform was this anyway? It remained quiet for a full few seconds. It was completely quiet for several seconds. Just as Qiu Wuji was about to find an excuse to blow her top, I suddenly smiled slightly and softly said goodnight. Go get some rest. Qiu Wuji swallowed her anger right back down. She turned her head and watched my back as I walked into the bathroom, speechless for a long while. Early the next morning, I explained to Qiu Wuji on the couch. There is an air conditioner remote in your room. It works just like the television remote. You can turn it on if you feel hot, so you do not have to sneak off to take a cold shower. Qiu Wuji sat there with a wandering gaze, looking beside the sofa. As I took off the pajamas hanging nearby, I said I wanted to do push-ups, and deliberately took off my clothes. What a scoundrel. My muscles were all soft and flabby. So ugly. True to form, it was over in 3 minutes. I lay flat on the ground and muttered, I cannot do this anymore. Can we stop training for today? Qiu Wuji glanced at me sideways. Is this your determination to change? After a long period of lacking exercise, suddenly moving around yesterday will naturally feel like this. Qiu Wuji said. It would have been better if you had massaged your muscles yesterday after working out. Instead, you went straight to take a bath. I was in too much pain to endure it. So I asked, is there any saving me now? Qiu Wuji looked at my bare chest, her eyes flickering, as she thought that of course there were ways. Under immortal arts, no soreness would ever remain. But speaking of this, there was a very annoying issue. Qiu Wuji ground her teeth and said word by word, why can my immortal arts take effect from afar for everything else, but not for healing injuries? Give me an explanation for this. Rolling my eyes, I stepped back a bit and replied, does this even need an explanation? In TV shows, when male leads heal other men, they can do it through clothes. When healing women, don't they always have to take off their clothes? As a harem author, everything else can work from a distance, except for healing. The closer the contact, the better. Taking off clothes is even better. Otherwise, you will suffer a deviation in your vital energy. Seeing that look on my face, Qiu Wuji knew exactly what was going on. She put on a straight face and said, go write a patch. Fine, I know this can be changed. I am still daydreaming, but any changes will show up in the main text later. This kind of thing won't be written into the outline settings anyway. As for the unmodified parts, Qiu Wuji says, so that means treating my injuries now requires touching you? I reply, it seems that way. Then heal yourself, she says. Qiu Wuji sneers and stands up. Hope the pain kills you. Hey, wait a minute. I say with a cheeky smile. My cultivation is also meant to figure out the secret of your travel sooner. Let's live day by day. If this soreness drags on for a few days, you will be back already. Wasting too much time going back and forth. It is just some minor muscle soreness after all. Be broad-minded about it. Qiu Wuji gives me an exasperated look. She cannot help kicking me, saying, you are not completely immobile. Otherwise, how do other people exercise? Trying to trick this sect master, get lost. Indeed, fooling an ancient senior is not that easy. Qiu Wuji watches me flip over to do push-ups again. Then she notices the pajamas on the sofa and secretly casts a spell. She changes the doll pattern on my chest into a crying face. It looks different this time. Much more pleasing to the eye. Qiu Wuji feels refreshed. I quietly put the pajamas back. I wondered if I should learn more about the medical knowledge of this world. Otherwise, I might miss out on a lot of scenery. Immortal cultivators have a calm temperament and can endure loneliness, so Qiu Wuji never had an eager desire to go out and learn more. Instead, I cared more about this. I felt she was learning too slowly and remained cooped up in one room. Qiu Wuji did not think so. She felt that she had not even fully taken in the scenery within a single room. So how could she talk about taking in the whole world? Her lifespan was long enough, and she had plenty of time. Perhaps decades later, watching me grow old with gray hair would also be its own kind of fun. Qiu Wuji had long been indifferent to birth, old age, sickness, and death, so thinking this way was normal. However, the more she thought about it, the more she frowned, feeling that me dying of old age might not be a good thing. No lying down, get up and continue. Right? It must be because the Creator Father God cannot die. I should probably make him start cultivating earlier. I really cannot take it anymore. If you dare to slow down, you will do another 100. No way. After the meal, I put my hands on my hips, grimaced, and went out for a bit. When I returned, I handed a smartphone to Qiu Wuji. Is this the magical artifact that can have someone deliver liquefied gas from thousands of miles away? Is it expensive? Qiu Wuji took the phone and asked. I stretched lazily. Not expensive, you get it free when you top up your data plan. I will find you a second-hand laptop later. With these two things, your speed of understanding this world will be a bit faster. Qiu Wuji hesitated and said, it sounds like both cost a lot of money. The way you spend money. How many days will your new royalty payment last? I smiled. Didn't we count this as you borrowing it? Wait, how do you even know this trick? Qiu Wuji sneered. Do you know what the simplest way to pay off debts is? She put on a murderous cold face, reached out, and made a slashing gesture across her own neck. If you die, you do not have to pay it back. I let out a soft chuckle. This reaction was somewhat unexpected for Qiu Wuji. I sat down on the nearby sofa and said, "That is not my Qiu Wuji. Why must I be your Qiu Wuji?" Qiu Wuji opened her mouth, but still kept quiet. "Give me your hand," I suddenly said. "What are you doing?" Before she could react, I reached out and grabbed her hand. I leaned in closer and said, "What could I possibly do? Do you really think I can beat you?" I pulled out a black ballpoint pen. Qiu Wuji blushed and stayed silent. She silently watched me write something on her hand. "Remember this, it is your phone number." I flashed a bright smile after finishing. "My very own phone number?" Qiu Wuji looked at the digits on her hand. She wondered if this meant she was getting closer to becoming a real person in this world. Her contacts list only had my name. Even this string of numbers carried my personal identity. His sentiment of feeling responsible for helping me was being put into action step by step. Even though he was not wealthy, that was my Qiu Wuji. She might actually help me treat them. Seeing me all sore and achy really did look miserable. Suddenly, she felt a slight urge to go back. This feeling was not entirely a good thing. However, this time, the duration of her spirit remaining here was noticeably extended. Qiu Wuji still had not felt any strain, or any sign of needing to return yet. Initiate a return on my own. It does not seem like there is any need to rush back. I might as well make some more good food for him. That thing called WeChat lets me transfer money to you. When you buy groceries, just use this to scan. You saw me scan it many times, so you should understand. Qiu Wuji, who was changing clothes in her room, gave a soft hum. To let her experience the modern world even better, I bought her a new set of clothes. Right, you need to pick an ID for WeChat. Sec Master Qiu, do you have any ideas for an imposing nickname? Qiu Wuji did want to pick a nickname, not to look imposing, but to deliberately avoid being seen as his Qiu Wuji. Yet after turning it over in her mind for a long time, she could not think of anything. Her fingers mimicked the way I entered text as she slowly searched for an ID. Before she knew it, it unconsciously became "Water follows the heaven away." Qiu Wuji wondered if even her poetic title was a matter of destiny. She pressed her lips together and could not help thinking. Following my original train of thought, water is me, and the heaven probably refers to Chu Ge. Thus, water follows the heaven away. But from another perspective, it could also be me. I am the heaven of that world, and also the water following the heaven away. However, he did not seem to have thought of this level. He was probably just glad that I still used the thing he gave me. Never mind. Anyway, I am Qiu Wuji. What does it matter if I change it or not? Qiu Wuji stood up and said, "Where can I buy a recipe book? Take me to find one." With a phone and a computer, you can look up whatever dish you want to make directly. There are plenty of food live streams and recipes. Qiu Wuji raised the phone with some doubt. "This thing? The same thing you use to type your stories?" I laughed. "These two items are the most important magic treasures right now. Once you get used to playing with them, you will be a modern person. Then you better teach me right now." Meanwhile, outside the residential complex, a man wearing a black hoodie stared at the floor where I lived. After making sure he had the right place, the next moment, he actually slowly melted into the wall. And at this moment, I was typing away furiously in front of the computer. The upcoming plot for Qiu Wuji mainly revolves around gathering materials to ascend and undergo tribulation. There is not much plot related to Chu Ge. Compared to the previous writing style, Qiu Wuji's solo scenes would also be increased, gradually giving it a dual protagonist feel. My typing hands suddenly paused, thinking if I should write more independent scenes for other characters and make it closer to an ensemble style. Suddenly, a notification sound interrupted my thoughts. I looked closely and saw it was my book editor. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be that I am meeting the same fate as Zhang Qiren? However, the result was that my word count was almost enough, and the editor applied for a major recommendation push for me, telling me to stockpile chapters and write an author note these next few days. After reading that, I was both pleasantly surprised and puzzled. Even though I had been writing rather freely lately, was it actually turning out well? Another message notification rang out. This time it was from Zhang Qiren. "Brother Chu, I have not seen you chatting in the author group for days, and you have not been replying to book reviews or comments either. You are acting like a ruthless updating robot." I thought to myself that I really have been updating more than usual lately. Now that my mindset is relaxed, even my typing speed has gotten faster. I was busy too, so I typed back a reply saying you have not popped up either. I am busy too. Busy falling in love, I suppose. Zhang Qiren sent a funny emoji, and finally stated his true purpose. "I saw you out shopping with a pretty woman." I adjusted my glasses, wondering where on earth he could have seen that. I had hardly been out with Qiu Wuji a few times. Could Zhang Qiren work nearby? "Is your company around here? My shopping time should be during normal work hours. How did you spot me?" "I just work as a security guard, you know." I tried to change the subject, but Zhang Qiren did not press further. "I was chasing a thief around here the other day and lost him, but I accidentally caught sight of you. You should be careful, Chu Ge." The security in your residential area is practically non-existent, so watch out for thieves. I scratched my head, feeling that something was a bit strange before Qiu Wuji's voice called out from ahead. A simple word of arrival shattered all my racing thoughts, like a summer afternoon. A gentle breeze lightly scratching my heart. What is it? Seeing you all smiles, Qiu Wuji asked while untying her apron. My nose was practically turning up to the sky with smugness. Hee hee, I got some good news today. Basically, it can be understood as me getting rewarded by the sect and entering the scripture pavilion. How much of it I can convert into actual cultivation still depends on myself. My analogy for Qiu Wuji was as intuitive and accurate as it gets. As soon as Qiu Wuji heard it, she knew this was truly great news and could not help feeling a bit excited. Is the protagonist treatment finally coming to you? I blinked and looked at her without saying a word. Qiu Wuji paused for a moment, and her smile turned into killing intent. I quickly lowered my head to eat. Perhaps the appearance of the female lead brought good luck to my side. That was a strong survival instinct, and even though the flattery sounded nice, Qiu Wuji still felt an increasing urge to beat me up. This felt different from when she first crossed over and beat me up. She just really wanted to hit me. For the rest of the meal, the two of us ate in silence without speaking again. After finishing, Qiu Wuji put on a straight face and cleared away the dishes. She stood up and said, I'm going to borrow the noon yang energy to cultivate for a bit. Do not disturb me if nothing is wrong. I really wanted to say that I have way more yang energy right here, and pure yang at that. I knew saying that would get me beaten to death on the spot, so I could only obediently head back to my own room, planning to take a nap as well. Qiu Wuji went to her room and sat down cross-legged, clearing her mind and focusing her spirit, when suddenly a vortex slowly appeared on the wall behind her, and a figure actually crawled out of it. The figure gradually became more and more solid, stepping right out of the wall using wall-passing technique. A thin man dressed in black appeared behind Qiu Wuji, holding a dagger in his hand. He first looked Qiu Wuji over, and was immediately captivated by her heavenly appearance. She is so pretty, although I found the wrong person. This harvest is not inferior at all. I must have hit the jackpot. Just as his hand was about to touch Qiu Wuji's shoulder, Qiu Wuji coldly opened her eyes. A flash of light appeared, filled with deadly intent. The man felt as if he had fallen into the most terrifying nightmare. His whole body pierced by a surge of current, and the dagger in his hand slipped and fell. The man in black was shocked. What is going on? I cannot move. Is this a binding spell? Qiu Wuji sat in her spot and coldly looked him over. Spare me, heroine. I'm just passing by, the man said with difficulty. Suddenly, footsteps came from behind, and a broom fiercely smashed against the back of his head, knocking him out cold. Are you all right? I asked with a worried look. Qiu Wuji almost laughed. Wait, who am I even asking? I paused, finally coming to my senses. The one whose safety should be of concern is definitely the burglar. No matter how much her power was suppressed, she was still an immortal cultivator, and a split soul of a top-tier powerhouse at that. What on earth was I nervous about? Qiu Wuji's smile grew even richer. He walked right through the wall, making barely any sound. How could you possibly sense him coming in? I laughed it off. I tried to take a nap, but couldn't fall asleep. I heard some noise and felt something was off, so I came over to check. Qiu Wuji muttered inwardly. You were probably just keeping an eye on the next room all this time. As a pathetic rider with no strength to truss a chicken, clearly still aching all over, you still rushed out with a broom at the first moment, even putting your shoes on backwards. Qiu Wuji poked me and said, watch it. You are so weak. Yet you still go out catching thieves with a broom? Have you lost your mind? You have a death wish. Wincing in pain, I blushed and yelled loudly. This is a man's business. The man in black lying on the ground woke up. He wondered what was going on with this couple. Had they not noticed there was still a thief on the ground? Is this how a captured thief is supposed to be treated? He had imagined hundreds of ways to die, but never this. Qiu Wuji asked me, tell me, how do you handle thieves around here? Do you hand them over to the authorities, or can you just kill them yourself? The man in black was startled. Would it be a problem if I turned him into an idiot? Qiu Wuji asked with a straight face, as if it were perfectly normal. I want to search his soul. I shook my head. Better not. If he becomes an idiot, I won't be able to explain it. It would just bring unnecessary trouble. What if he refuses to talk? Qiu Wuji asked seriously. I can give it a try. He's so weak that I can try to search his soul without damaging it, though I can't completely guarantee the result. Before he could even finish speaking, the man, terrified out of his wits, knelt down and shouted. Great one, what do you want to know? I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Facing a freak who could freeze someone just by glaring, he didn't dare gamble on whether her threat was a bluff or the truth. If she actually performed a soul search like in those novels, and actually left him brain dead, he'd rather be rotting in a prison cell. Qiu Wuji looked into his eyes. The cheerful expression she had while talking to me instantly turned bone-chillingly cold. Where did you get your wall-walking technique? The man in black was stunned for a moment. He thought, this is what you care about? Aren't you going to ask why I came here? Seeing his hesitation, a murderous intent flared in Qiu Wuji's eyes. Her jade-like finger was about to press onto his forehead. The man had no doubt that this woman was truly capable of killing. Drenched in a cold sweat, he shouted, this is an innate ability I awakened on my own. Many people have them. Qiu Wuji's finger remained poised before his forehead. She looked up and met my eyes. Many people. Is it really a spiritual recovery? Awakened abilities? I asked. I've lived for nearly 30 years. How could I not know about this? The man in black gave a flattering smile and said, people who just awakened, like you, great one. It's normal not to find others like you at first. Still, you are special. So eventually you will connect with certain things and form your own circles. Like right now, here they come. I exchanged another look with Qiu Wuji and finally asked the question I should have asked first. You have the ability to walk through walls and you use it to be a thief? Your circle is quite high-end, huh? A thief? The man hesitated and did not answer. Does this outfit look like a thief? I should have changed into something else. Terrifying light flickered at Qiu Wuji's fingertips. Wait, do not use soul-searching. I will talk, the man cried out in fright. I came here to search for an enemy. I only knew he was in this area, without knowing his exact location. So I was checking house by house. I narrowed my eyes and stared at him for a long time, before suddenly saying, this guy is lying. Hit him. Qiu Wuji did not immediately understand why I judged that he was lying. But since I said so, she instinctively conjured a void palm and slapped him across the face, seeming to notice the confusion in Qiu Wuji's heart. I took the initiative to explain. Who looks for people house by house at noon? Not everyone has the habit of taking a nap. You clearly knew. I asked what she does. The man in black replied, she won too much and broke some taboos in the underground boxing world. And some people suspect she might be taking on assassin jobs. There's a case linked to her. My mouth twitched. I felt like the story was getting a bit surreal. Underground boxing and assassins actually exist these days? And she's a beautiful girl who lives right across from me? To think Zhang Qiren and I were fantasizing about going to some club to book her. If people found out, we'd probably be beaten into a pulp. Well, since the female lead from the book has already appeared, I guess surreal things aren't that surprising anymore. Qiu Wuji leaned in and whispered, do you want to check out their circle? I hesitated for a moment, but shook my head. We don't know how strong they are, so it's better if we don't get involved on purpose. Can you wipe this guy's recent memory? I'll hand him over to the police. Qiu Wuji looked at me in silence before giving a slight smile. Fine, I'll do it your way. Wiping his short-term memory shouldn't be a problem. I stood aside and silently watched Qiu Wuji's actions. I thought that with her mindset, she wouldn't be afraid of this little bit of involvement. On the contrary, she'd probably want to dive in headfirst to enter the elite circles of this world as quickly as possible. And in this kind of hidden circle, setting up a so-called identity is even less of a problem. It is much more meaningful than worrying about daily household expenses at home. Yet I did not want to abruptly shatter this kind of life. Though I wanted her to understand the real world sooner, it should not be like this. I let out a breath, took out my phone, and wondered whether to call the police or call Lin Wuyang directly. Then I saw Qiu Wuji slap the man across the face again. Someone is delivering cash. Hand over all the money and valuables on you. I have been trapped among worldly goods for so long and held back from going out to rob. Yet people are actually delivering it to my doorstep. Qiu Wuji's sudden act of robbery made my plan to call the police fall through. Nobody carries cash when going out these days. Still, this thief was a bit unusual. Perhaps because transactions for their kind are inconvenient and leave traces. He actually had cash on him. Are these the banknotes of your world? I gave a blank hum in response. Do these denominations correspond to those numbers in your WeChat? I replied, that is right. She said, then this works. It is faster than writing books. Qiu Wuji cheered up. I can pay you back now. I told you I would definitely be able to make money. I covered my face and wept bitterly, thinking I was sorry. It was my fault as a father for not writing you well. Qiu Wuji dragged the unconscious thief outside, ready to get rid of him. The streets were deserted in the middle of the day, so Qiu Wuji cast an invisibility spell and swaggered to dump the thief on a road 2 blocks away, inside the green belt. After finishing all this, the two of us had not far away to watch. I left his memory frozen right before he entered the residential compound, so nobody will know who attacked him. And you do not need to report to the authorities. Just wait for him to wake up on his own. And it has nothing to do with us. I could not help muttering inwardly. Why are you so experienced at doing this kind of thing? However, if a thief like this did not run into Qiu Wuji, but stumbled into other rooms, ordinary people would be the ones suffering. Scoundrels like this cannot just be left to fend for themselves. It is better to hand them over to the police. Before long, sure enough, a young security guard discovered the man in black lying in the middle of the road. I let out a soft sigh of relief. With Qiu Wuji standing beside me, she saw me looking relieved and suddenly asked, "What is wrong? Uneasy in your heart?" I nodded. "Because I was robbed? That is part of it. Anyway, do not ever do this kind of thing in our world again. Something bad will happen sooner or later. Unless you really run off to some war-torn place to become a big shot." Qiu Wuji looked slightly surprised. She thought, "Did I not do this because you wrote it that way?" I shrugged, as if seeing right through her thoughts. "But you had that idea." "Because of my world settings in the first place." I shrugged and said, "Maybe this is my inner desire. So I did not know how to stop you either. I was just worried that you would get addicted to making money so easily and cause trouble later. It is not because of this incident itself. Actually, teaching a thief like that felt pretty satisfying." Qiu Wuji nodded slightly. "I understand. I will pay attention. You said this was only a partial factor. Then what is the main reason? Because it touched upon the supernatural world?" "Yes." I looked at the distant sky and said in a low voice, "Although deep in everyone's heart, there is a dream of a supernatural or martial arts world. When such things actually appear in reality, it feels like a peaceful life has been completely disrupted. It is rather unsettling." I paused and smiled self-deprecatingly. After all, I am just an ordinary person who has lived a normal life for over 20 years. Qiu Wuji tilted her head and looked at me for a long time. Someone who can create a world, a man who can create a living being, and have her come to his home to cook for him, says he is an ordinary person? If my father God, Qiu Wuji, is just an ordinary person, then what are ordinary mortals supposed to be? I scratched my head. I do not even know how you managed to run out here in the first place. It is not like I have that kind of ability. So what if you did not? When other people awaken supernatural abilities, is that really considered their own skill? Does it not all descend from the heavens anyway? Some people use that to engage in petty and despicable conduct. Some use it to showcase their talents. And some are content with a simple life and find joy and peace. The kind of life you choose to live, is it not entirely up to your own choice?" Qiu Wuji said earnestly. "The reason you feel uneasy stems simply from your weakness. If you were strong enough, who could dictate your life? You even almost slashed Father God. Was that because you were forced to change your destiny?" Qiu Wuji seemed to guess what I was thinking at that moment. We looked at each other for a moment, and then smiled at the same time. The sound of police sirens came from the distance, and the police had arrived. The two of us stopped talking. I watched the police cuff the thief and question the unlucky residential security guard. They pulled the surveillance footage in an orderly fashion. To my surprise, I ran into an acquaintance, Lin Wuyang. He paced around with his hands in his pockets, looking like he held some sort of leadership position. Lin Wuyang walked halfway around the scene and paused when he spotted me standing in the crowd. He pulled me aside and asked, "Do you live here?" "Not a few streets away," I replied, "just passing by to watch the show." Before Lin Wuyang came over, Qiu Wuji had already quietly slipped away. There was quite a large crowd gathered around. I blended in without a guilty conscience and greeted him quite openly. "Did you change positions?" I did not know much about the police system and felt rather puzzled. Given his civil service exam results, he should have been doing desk work. How did he end up responding to a routine call like this? Lin Wuyang exhaled a cloud of smoke and said, "Some special cases simply happen to intersect with my line of work." He looked me up and down with a solemn expression. "Have you seen anything strange around here these days? Or any unfamiliar faces coming and going? I do not even know everyone in my own building, let alone strangers 2 streets away." I retorted irritably. "You would get the same answer from anyone these days." Lin Wuyang nodded in agreement. "It is not like the old neighborhoods anymore, where everyone across the street was a familiar face. Who even recognizes anyone nowadays?" As we spoke, a police officer hurried over. With a grim expression, "Chief Lin, we checked the surveillance." Lin Wuyang glanced at me. "We will chat later. I have actual work to do now." I waved my hand casually. "Look at you, Chief Lin now. Remember to treat me to dinner next time." Lin Wuyang smiled and left with the officer. It was not about putting on airs. Outsiders naturally could not sit in on a police investigation. That applied to supernatural cases and ordinary ones alike. It was strict protocol. After making sure no one was around, the nearby officer finally started giving Lin Wuyang a serious report. I checked the footage. That person just appeared here out of nowhere. There was not even a ghost in sight beforehand. "Understood." Lin Wuyang let out a soft sigh and said, "Wrap up the operation. We have been hunting the wall crosser in secret for so long without any leads. I never expected to stumble upon a breakthrough here. Following this lead, along with the materials from Director Gu, I think we can finally wrap up our report. We will figure out who left him here after the interrogation. Even if there really are other unknown ability users out there. This whole operation feels like doing a favor for the police. If someone just wants to live a peaceful life, we are not allowed to interfere blindly. We must protect the privacy and legitimate rights of citizens. There is no use prying further. I also turned and squeezed out of the crowd to look for Qiu Wuji. As soon as I pushed through, I saw a young girl in black standing under a telephone pole in the distance, quietly watching the commotion over here. See me look over. The girl turned around and left, vanishing in an instant. Qiu Wuji said, I heard that captain and his subordinate talking about how if ability users want to live a normal life, they need to be protected. Qiu Wuji appeared from the side, walking all the way home with me. Your country actually has a pretty humane touch to it. Most of the worries I had before were wiped out by those words. In a great mood, I smiled and said, of course. This is called putting people first. Now that I think about it, that makes sense. Most abilities are not necessarily dangerous in nature. If people are used to a peaceful life, it is totally normal for them to just want to live in normal days. Qiu Wuji nodded. However, their cultivation is very strange. It is like they are specializing in a certain strange power rather than systematic cultivation. I was also surprised. Superpowers and immortal cultivation are naturally different. Even so, it is quite magical that their strange power can be cultivated. Qiu Wuji said, I can see traces of tempering. Take this wall-passing ability for example. There is a huge gap between its strength levels. Once tempered to a certain degree, one might even ignore defenses and merge with the 5 elements. I fell into thought. It seems this so-called spiritual Qi awakening has been going on for a while and already has a certain system. Qiu Wuji turned to look at me and suddenly smiled, saying, have you ever thought that you might have also unconsciously awakened a strange power without knowing it? Could it be imagination materialization? I was stunned. Qiu Wuji shook her head and said, hard to say. I dare not guess the abilities of a deity lightly. Once you begin cultivation and are able to comprehend and control your own power, you might know for sure. I followed behind and sighed. This is going to take forever, let alone getting started right now. I have not even met the basic physical requirements. Who knows how long it will take to get into shape. Qiu Wuji bit her lower lip slightly, kept her head down, and walked without answering. When Qiu Wuji used a computer for the first time, she accidentally stumbled onto an adult website. Looking at the colorful screens and the demonic sect terminology filling the page. She actually, just a moment ago, the two of them returned to their rented apartment from the crime scene. I glanced at the door across the hallway and muttered that this neighbor is dangerous, with unusual abilities. Now that she is being targeted by others, it might bring trouble to us. I am wondering if we should force her to leave. I hesitated for a moment, as Zhang Qiren words about her being a failed game streamer came to mind. Actually, she probably just wanted to live an ordinary life. Only she did not succeed. I sighed softly, thinking it really would be better to let her leave. But we need to use some strategy. If you go and force her directly, would that not expose your extraordinary nature? Are we going to erase her memory again? Qiu Wuji pondered for a moment, feeling a headache because this really was not easy to handle. We should wait and see for now. I will figure something out later. I nodded and stopped dwelling on it. After we went inside and closed the door, we both instantly felt all the chaos of the outside world completely shut out. I let out a comfortable sigh. This is what home feels like. I will go right for a bit first, and then work out. Qiu Wuji suddenly reached out and grabbed my sleeve. Can you help me find some recipes and cooking live streams again? I smiled and nodded. Of course. The laptop I bought you just arrived anyway. I will teach you how to use it for that. This is Baidu. Whenever you do not understand something, you can just search it right here. Like this. I leaned in close to her and opened the laptop to type in Qiu Wuji. The very first page displayed several poems related to her name, including the complete line about water flowing away into the boundless autumn sky. This is truly a top-tier magical artifact. Even the cultivation world has nothing like this. Qiu Wuji stared at it with sparkling eyes full of wonder. But a moment later, Qiu Wuji's gaze became a bit resentful. She thought, why didn't you tell me? I thought that computer was just for writing books. If I'd known this sooner, I wouldn't have guessed so many wild things. I showed her a few more things, like how to make egg fried rice. Instantly, a huge pile of results appeared, including video tutorials. It was practically a divine object. Qiu Wuji was overjoyed. I warned her, don't believe everything you find here. It's not an authoritative source, just information from different people, so use it only as a reference. Qiu Wuji nodded and said, I can tell the difference myself. I looked at her skeptically for a moment. Then I taught her that if she wanted to do live streams or videos, she could start with Bilibili. Qiu Wuji sat in front of the computer. We were sitting very close to each other. We could both smell each other's scent, but neither of us seemed to mind. This level of closeness seemed to have become completely normal. Even the point of Qiu Wuji looking up recipes had become a bit strange, because she had given all the money she looted to me. Not only the cost of food and lodging for a few months, but even the cost of the phone and computer had all been paid back in full. She no longer needed to cook for me to pay her rent. However, both of us forgot one thing. Until the lesson ended. Qiu Wuji suddenly pushed me away, saying, "I get it now. You go do your own work." Looking at Qiu Wuji, who was entirely focused on the computer, I confirmed once more, "Are you sure you do not need me to teach you? Otherwise I am going back to write." Qiu Wuji did not even raise her head as she replied, "No need. Go write your words." I looked at that stunning profile of her face, suddenly sighing as it dawned on me. That posture just now was clearly a chance to take advantage of her, like holding her little hand and moving the mouse around. Her mind was on learning, so she might not have noticed it at all. Gosh, I am so stupid. Over there, Qiu Wuji watched me leave, opened the search bar, and thought for quite a long while. Her first task was not searching for recipes, but slowly typing out WeChat with a single finger. Can transfers leave no traces? The displayed results made her frown a little. How to delete traces on a mobile phone? Why are there no methods to stop investigators from finding transfers? It seems better to just trust Chu Ge after all. The source of wealth is cut off. What to do when the female lead runs out of the book? Qiu Wuji looked at the question's posting time, and a smile unconsciously curved the corners of her mouth. This anonymous poster must be writing next door right now. Seeing his exasperated look, gently stroking this gadget really feels nice. She found out she could even ask others when she had questions she did not know. She thought about it once more. Finally, she looked up a certain query. Where is the mobile miracle nightclub? This was a memory she had dug out from the mind of that wall-crossing man. Even I had no idea when she had managed to dig that out. Baidu Maps displayed a local address. Qiu Wuji silently memorized it. Since the search keywords included the word nightclub, some rather strange things popped up on the page. Things involving BDSM and the like. Startled, Qiu Wuji slammed her laptop shut with a snap. This really was the demonic realm. She looked around vigilantly like a little cat, and after making sure nobody was around, she slowly opened the laptop again. Suddenly, a massive security warning popped up on the screen. Qiu Wuji was somewhat at a loss. What was this supposed to mean? Was the computer broken? Fortunately, the built-in antivirus software on the computer intercepted that endless stream of pop-up windows. Qiu Wuji patted her chest in relief. Thinking it was a good thing nothing went wrong. Forget it, she decided to just watch some cooking videos instead. Qiu Wuji opened a video website and searched for a clip. Today Little Meow is teaching everyone how to make cucumber and scrambled eggs. Looking at the girl dressed in a maid outfit, who was holding a cucumber and eggs, Master Qiu's worldview suffered yet another violent shock. She rubbed her brow, continually comforting herself in her heart. For someone in this kind of environment, these things must be normal. The woman pinned the pervert beneath her body, delivering an unstoppable flurry of punches like falling raindrops. Every blow landed squarely. Yet who would have thought the pervert would gradually start groaning? So comfortable. Just a moment ago. As I snapped out of my focused writing, it was already dark. I stood up and stretched. I planned to squeeze in a workout before dinner. But when I opened my door, I saw Qiu Wuji still sitting in her spot hugging her computer. Qiu Wuji also snapped back to reality and hurriedly put down the computer, saying, "I lost track of time. It is time to cook." I smiled understandingly. I never expected our sect master Qiu to get so lost in the internet. No way. Qiu Wuji stubbornly retorted, "I was just learning a few more dishes." All right. I smiled and crouched down, looking forward to your new culinary skills. Qiu Wuji hesitated for a moment. Are you going to work out again? Yeah, I feel like time and tide wait for no man. Is your soreness gone? No. It hurts. It hurts even more. Qiu Wuji pressed her lips together in silence for a moment, then suddenly spoke. Stop sitting there. Come sit over here. I raised my head with difficulty, looking somewhat puzzled. Qiu Wuji said calmly, I will treat you and promote blood circulation. Hearing that, I instantly perked up. My eyes revealed deep emotion. Qiu Wuji crossed her arms. What is that expression on your face? You feel a sense of urgency. How could I not? Actually, the progress you were worried about before can be sped up a lot. Not only can I treat you to heal your body, I can also clear your meridians and nourish your internal organs, allowing you to start cultivating right away. It is just a mere mortal body after all. How much trouble could conditioning it be? I was dumbfounded. Then why did you make me run and exercise, putting me through hell for 2 whole days? Qiu Wuji turned her head away with a guilty conscience. I originally wanted you to take it step by step from the very beginning. Gaining things too easily leads to impatience and instability, which is bad for your future state of mind. I glared at her speechlessly for a long time. Then I suddenly thought of something. Will helping me treat this shorten the time you can stay in this realm? Qiu Wuji was startled, but after a moment she turned back and replied with a smile. No. Hearing that, I squatted down directly. Do not lie to me, it definitely will. Forget it, I do not want it. I will train myself. So annoying. Qiu Wuji suddenly lost her temper. She grabbed me and flipped me over. Then she pinned me down and gave me a beating. Stop pretending. You clearly want it, yet you're acting all righteous. I'm not letting you play the good person. Being two-faced is the most annoying thing of all. Help. It hurts. Her small fists rained down on my back. Before I knew it, they turned into a slender palm. As she gently stroked me, my cries of pain gradually turned into moans. The sky grew dark. No lights were on in the room. The silhouettes of a lone man and woman blurred together in the dimness. Her delicate hand gently brushed my bare back. Her faint fragrance secretly teased me. Meanwhile, at the city bureau, Lin Wuyong handed a stack of organized documents to Gu Ruoyan. Director Gu, the materials you wanted are basically finished. I've already sent the electronic copies to your email. Thank you for your hard work, Section Chief Lin.